I'm Phil Reed from Steve Jackson Games, and you're listening to Morris's unofficial tabletop RPG talk.
This week, Morrus and Jessica are joined by special guest Mike Shea, aka Sly Flourish, to talk about D&D Beyond and Walled Gardens. In the news, D&D announcements from PAX Unplugged, MCDM's new RPG on Backerkit tops 1 million in a day, Pathfinder 2nd Edition has a charity bundle, and more. Plus, a brand new sketch about the wondrous inventions of a rather mundane artificer. This week on Morris's unofficial tabletop RPG talk.
Today's podcast is sponsored by the Perturbed Dragon Tavern. It says here that this establishment serves only the finest real ale and the best meat pies this side of Grim Harbour. Well, I can tell you that I visited this establishment a number of times a few years ago. I was part of a gaming group, but we had a falling out that was never resolved. Anyway, their beer tastes like puddle water, and their cocktail selection is almost non-existent. I'm fairly sure that their meat pies are made from rat meat. I was terribly ill after eating one. Anyway, if you feel you have to visit this festering hovel of a tavern, you'll find it just outside the western gate of Thorniston's Hale, the Perturbed Dragon Tavern. Who even comes up with these names? It's ridiculous.
All the tabletop role-playing news. We aim to amuse and we aim to enthuse. And Morris's unofficial tabletop RPG
Hello, and welcome to Morris's unofficial tabletop RPG talk. I am Russ, aka Morrus, or Morrus, aka Russ. And with me this week is...
It's me, Jessica from EM Publishing. We are minus a Peter, but minus a Peter, we have a returning guest. We did not terrify them away last time. He is back. Mike Shea is joining us this week. Hi, Mike.
Hello. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, we tried our best to terrify you away, but you came back.
Oh, yeah, that's all good.
What went wrong there?
Nothing. Yeah, it was great. Enjoyed it.
So how have we all been this week? We were at Dragon Meet last weekend. Sold some books, saw some people. Jessica caught
COVID
Ebola or something.
Yeah. So I tested for COVID before I went to check that I didn't have it, so I don't go to an event and give people COVID because that seems like a socially responsible thing to do. I went, I didn't, and then I came back, and this week I now do, which is why I sound the way that I do this week. Yay! So yeah, just if you're gathering with people this holidays, just keep testing and make sure you're healthy.
Sounds like a good advice.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right, anyway, should we do some news?
Yes.
So last week, I currently have a dog trying to jump up on the desk.
Oh yeah, also joining us on this week's podcast is two rambunctious dogs that are penned into Russ's office because there's Christmas decorating going on in the rest of the house. And for some reason, those two dogs...
They have opinions about the TTRPG industry.
Yeah. And for some reason, those two dogs could not be trusted.
Yeah, so unfortunately, if you do hear whining and barking in the background, there's not a lot we can do about that. I would say I'm sorry, but I'm not really.
So as well as Dragon Meet, though, getting on to TTRPG news, PAX Unplugged happened, and Wizards of the Coast said several things.
So this is interesting, because this was like, we finished our podcast last week, and then, as always happens with news coming out from Seattle, it came out after we finished the show, so now we're kind of reporting on it a week later.
And the dogs are really mad about that.
You can hear that.
That one cut through the noise suppression.
Yeah.
Oh dear. Anyway.
But what did we miss last week that people probably might have heard of last week over the weekend?
So it was quite interesting. Wizards posted some infographics and then they took them down again and replaced them with some other altered infographics.
I mean, was the infographic any more than a date?
It was a date, yeah.
But that is the key info.
And a picture of a fighter.
They announced their sort of 2024 lineup, which was mainly stuff we sort of knew about, but we got the actual dates for them, which is the important thing. And then just a few hours later, they retracted all that information and then put out replacement information minus the dates. And I got an email from Wizards PR company saying, hey, we've accidentally put out some graphics with some incorrect dates on them. Could you replace them with the updated ones with no dates? And, so there was a bit of a slip up. at Wizard's End, I guess.
I wonder how the dates got there in the first place.
That's what I'm wondering.
Because they were clearly wrong. Like, you looked at them and you're like, oh, really? We're going to have all 3 core books in May. Like, I don't think that's likely. Like, they said they weren't going to do that. They said it was going to be staggered.
Yeah.
Maybe it was a graphic design draft, and the graphic designer just put in the date will go here to give you an idea.
Just put a date.
Maybe they're just placeholder dates.
You know, like you put Lorem Ipsum on things and stuff like that. But maybe it was
or they mixed it up with one of the other products, which they could conceivably put out in May.
Yeah, I mean the dates.
This is weird.
The dates that they had was the 2024 core rulebooks, May the 21st.
Yeah.
Then they announced Vecna, Eve of Ruin, which is an adventure, also May the 21st. Mm-hmm. Then Quests from the Infinite Staircase, which is an adventure anthology, on July the 16th. And the Making of D&D book on June the 18th. So all basically within within a few weeks of each other.
5 books, including 3 core books.
Yeah.
Within 2 months. Yeah. But they just put out a UA. Like the idea that they could get a player's handbook out in 6 months when they're still doing playtesting of the current rules for arguably the number 1 highest produced book in TTRPGs. Mm-hmm. Doesn't seem likely. Like, that seemed very aggressive.
Yeah, I mean, they replaced them with, the one which said core rule book says player's handbook on it.
Oh, I mean, I wonder if I'd be surprised if they got the player's handbook out. That's fast. It feels fast, right? If they're not, because they can't be in layout yet if they're still working on the rules. So I don't know. You guys know more about publishing big core books. How long did it take? What was from the time? Can you give a brief time frame of like the Adventurer's Guide, the A5e Adventurer's Guide? Like,
it wasn't that 3 months or something
from the time
to when they're in our warehouse.
But that's, it depends. Yeah, printing to warehouse, it depends where we're printing, where we're sending to, but 3 to 4 months is possible. But that's just the logistics. We have the PDF ready to go. We're literally just sending the files and doing stuff.
Right.
So
you're like, its layout's already done at that point.
Exactly, yeah. But like with Wizards of the Coast, they have much wider distribution channels and much more complicated networks because they're shipping to bigger volumes to many countries. And I bet they have a couple of manufacturers because I bet they print more locally in Asia than they do in, Europe.
Well, I think
stuff like that. So
they're all printing in the US, I think.
Are they all printing in the US?
Yeah.
They might have sort of preferential or faster printing contracts.
Yeah. I mean, it feels like they can't, if they're putting out a UA and they plan to do a survey next month.
Yeah.
They're not in layout, right?
Unless the rest of the book is done and they're just holding space in those pages.
We're just doing
changes.
Barbarians, right?
They did say that 8 of the classes were locked, didn't they?
Yeah,
so,
I don't know.
A few weeks ago.
That is kind of what we do with, so we're going to have, we just launched this week, the Gate Pass, because our annual book's coming out, and it's like a summary of the whole of this year's articles that come out. And that's already in layout, even though the December issue hasn't come out, because we have all the other stuff. So maybe they're doing something similar to that. But even so, 6 months would be a really quick turnaround. It wouldn't be impossible, but I find it unlikely.
One big question I've talked about with some friends of mine. So they made this claim of these are going to be the biggest core books that are ever put out, and they're going to be quote unquote like almost 1,000 pages. And you're like, the old core books were also 1,000 pages. Yeah. Like they were all 300 plus pages. And the font size was about 25% smaller before than it is now. And they're talking about having more material in it than the old ones.
And more
did.
art as well.
And more art. Like, so,
So that tells me fewer words.
How's this going to, I guess. It's going to be like, we have
know.
a class and it's 12 words long. Like, that whole thing seems really bizarre. Like what's the book gonna look like when we get it if they're trying to pack that much stuff into it? I
guess you just sort of wait and see, I suppose.
I guess we will.
I don't know. I like the artwork though. That dwarf on the 2024 cool rulebook image. That's a lovely piece of art.
Yeah, they do look very cool.
Yeah. I mean, should we talk about what these actual books are that they've announced then?
It's probably helpful on a news show, yeah.
Yeah, should we do that then? Okay, so the 2024 core rulebooks obviously we know about. But Vecna, Eve of Ruin, I think this is the first time that we've heard that title, isn't it?
Yep.
We've known there's going to be a Vecna adventure of some kind.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know much else about it. It's a multiverse-spanning adventure. It goes up to level 20. Apparently it has cameos from various D&D characters, famous D&D characters. That's all we know, really.
Well, I imagine this one will do quite well because, they talked about Vecna and Stranger Things, so I think a lot of people that are new to D&D are familiar with the idea of this baddie, so it's kind of villain opposed to baddie, maybe.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I guess it could sell quite well. But I was thinking, is this going to be not using the new 2024 rules? Is this going to be...
Well, I don't know.
I mean, their argument is that there aren't new 2024 rules that... Whether or not you're making the book, like it's not like DCs are going to change.
To be fair, an adventure's going to look the same, isn't it?
and like even their monster design changes from book to book already, right? Like they're continually changing how monsters work. So
yeah.
The interesting to me is it's a 1 to 20 adventure. Like I think this is the first.
It says up to 20. It might not be 1 to 20.
Oh really? Sorry, yeah.
It doesn't say because what was that? Mad Mage. Dungeon of the Mad Mage was 5 to 20, wasn't it?
Yeah. I found it on the internet, so it's questionable. But it says that Amanda Hammond, who works at Wizards, said that Eva Room will take players from 1st to 20th.
Oh, in that case.
Oh, wow.
But it's not a direct quote, and it's on some website, so I could still be wrong.
Well, if it's on the internet, it must be true.
That's impressive.
That's my thought. Yeah.
That's how it works.
If I really want to know what's true, I ask ChatGPT, and ChatGPT never.
Yeah, that'll always tell you the truth. They wouldn't lie to you.
So the other book was Quests from the Infinite Staircase. So this looks like it's going to be an adventure collection. From what I can make out, and again, we don't know much about it, it's a bunch of classic adventures in the same way that, what was the seafaring, the
Ghost of Saltmarsh.
That one, yeah, that was a collection of classic ones.
Yeah,
wasn't it?
and Tales of the Yawning Portal was the same way.
Yeah, so I think that's what this is going to be. I'm not 100% sure, but I think that's what this is going to be. Again, that's all we know though. We know a title, we got a picture, we got an image of someone with a moustache. It was like Drizzt with a giant moustache. I don't know who that is. Is that a moustache or is that smoke? I don't know. I can't tell.
Let me have a look.
What do you reckon? Moustache or smoke?
I think that's a moustache.
It's quite an angular moustache.
Yeah, but that's a style choice.
Fair. Okay.
And amazing false lashes. If we say that's a moustache, then the things coming out the eyes are false lashes.
Must be also be, yeah. But they come all the way out and go round into the sky.
Isn't that?
That's fashion over function.
I thought they said it's some new villain, isn't it? I thought they mentioned something about having an entirely new villain.
Oh, maybe that's who it is then. I don't know.
And I might be mixing my artwork and announcements. But I thought they had said something about that they have an entirely new villain. I think that was in their 50th anniversary panel.
But it looks like a drow with a.
I think it's a djinn.
Yeah, like the red glowing eyes and the yeah.
Yeah, maybe.
It looks cool though. I like that
artwork.
Jinn
would definitely have big mustaches.
All jewel tones, purples and blue. Like it.
Let's go with that then. We're saying definitively that's what it is.
Oh yeah, right there. You heard it on the internet. Therefore, it must be true.
So, the final book, Making of D&D. Again, don't know a massive amount about it. Just a promo image and a few words. But it looks like it's lots of art. It's got a copy of a early version of D&D in it as part of it. And I think it's just kind of like, photos and interviews and scraps of information and letters and things like that. Based in the 1970s is my guess, looking at that.
The nice coffee table book.
Because there's been a few of these things out. There's been Art and Arcana, which came out a couple of years ago, which was the whole of D&D up until, I think, 5th edition, and looked at the whole making of D&D throughout the decades. And that was a big old, massive, sort of 3-inch thick book, which came with pull-out things and maps and posters and, I don't know, stuff.
Yeah.
It was very high production value then. Came in a box because it had a load of stuff with it. And it was super expensive. But, yeah, so making the D&D.
Yeah.
I guess we'll find out more.
I think it's interesting to look back at, because the history of D&D, it's like you say, it's 50 years. It's not that long, but if you think about the change in, culture around it, when it was first coming out, you had people like Oprah warning parents about it and stuff, and, now it's on stamps. It's like, right. It's interesting. But yeah, so.
Yeah. Well, anyway, so, I don't know. Do we think they're all still definitely coming out next year? Probably.
Yeah.
What's that? Books. All those books?
Yeah.
I think so. Yeah. I think they're going to be staggered a little bit more.
The email I got said that they'd release some accurate release dates soon.
Yeah.
I don't know what soon means, but
I don't know about you guys. I got plenty to do, so they can come out whenever they come out. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not too worried.
Question,
I really would rather them get it right.
Yeah.
So,
You know.
who's going to be buying the books when they come out? Because I haven't bought a D&D book in a while.
Oh, I'll almost certainly buy the core books. But I'll tell you, there's part of me, and I saw this, I guess, with the Pathfinder 2 new. Are they the Pathfinder 2 second edition?
A remaster, they call it.
Remastered.
No one says edition anymore. That's a word you should never use.
Sorry, what word did I say?
No company is using the word edition anymore. Like, well, Paizo and Wizards avoid that word.
Oh, do they?
Right to
Yeah.
play.
Okay. I don't want to fall foul of,
Yeah.
folly of their
Pinkerton's round,
advertisement marketing campaign.
Yeah.
But like they put it out and had an errata on like day one.
Mm.
Right. And it's like you immediately buy these books and immediately like, oh yeah, we screwed up. And there's part of me that's like the smart thing to do would be wait a year. Right. And like they're going to reprint them because they're going to sell very well and they're probably going to find problems. And then they're going to, in the reprint, they'll probably fix the problems. So, if you
I wonder if it's how bad the errata was though, because if it's kind of game breaking, you kind of have to fix it. Like, if it's minor stuff,
if it, I guess it's like how heavy the mechanics. And I'm still smarting from 4th edition, errata, which was like 72 pages long and fixed every single spell.
Oh my gosh.
So in that case, literally, like the core books were just not useful because you couldn't count on them at all.
I think it was my 5th edition player's handbook, actually, or one of mine. I've had more than one because I totally regretted doing this. So there was an errata document, and I did this like 5 or 6 years ago, or 7 years ago, or something. There was an errata document for, I think it was the 5th edition player's handbook, and I took that errata document and a pair of scissors and some glue.
Oh my gosh.
That's pretty cool. Now you have a unique player's handbook.
I don't think I even have that one anymore. I ruined the book. I finished it and I thought, what have I done?
It's selling on eBay for $4,000.
Yeah. But I went through and like just cut out all the errata and just pasted it in place over the top.
Yeah, my trick was to put a little dot. Like I'd take a Sharpie and put a dot next to anything that changed. So that's
not probably the sensible way to do it, Mike. I did not adopt the sensible method.
And then you can keep the errata document.
That's true. I usually prep for my games on my computer, so I'm on PDF. So luckily that gets around the errata thing. So
yeah,
the rule book is like if I'm sitting down and digesting all the information kind of situation. But,
this is going to directly lead into our longer commentary about is the core book even the official version of the game?
That's yeah.
Or is the actual official one what's on D&D Beyond?
Well,
we'll save that
topic for later.
We'll save that exciting talk for later.
Yeah.
So is that everything that Wizards of the Coast talked about? There's more.
There was a VTT, super secret. Gather around, throw your phone in a Faraday cage, and come look at our virtual tabletop. Yeah. And a bunch of people did, and they've had commentary on YouTube and things like that talking about the VTTs.
So people were allowed to talk about it, as I understand, but no photos or videos. Is that correct? Yeah, because there's, I know Roll for Combat, their channel.
Yeah, right. They had a big talk about it. Yeah,
had a big sort of talk about it.
And I think, the Dungeon Craft YouTube channel. I think the fellow that runs that, Professor Dungeon Master, also was there, and I think he said he was going to do
Roll for Combat has been quite negative on a lot of the stuff Wizards has been doing over the last year or two, but they were glowingly enthusiastic about this
really?
PTT. Like very, very enthusiastic.
So it's genuine enthusiasm then. It's not just.
I guess.
They weren't replaced with pod people.
All that, They put your phone in the Faraday cage and go into this device, please.
And it's not like they got granted special exclusive access or anything. They just went along to the convention and bought a ticket like everybody else.
Yeah, I think that's right. Exactly. That's what I heard. Is people could just show up. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I get confused because they're doing their maps thing as well.
Yeah.
On D&D Beyond, and how these two things are supposed to work alongside each other.
I do wonder if there's like two executives in Wizards that just don't talk to each other in the lunchroom. Right.
Possibly, yeah.
But I think it's actually a smart move to hedge their bets, right?
Yeah.
And have like a lightweight browser-based VTT that's all 2D, and then have a heavier client-based, 3D VTT with lots of tchotchkes and doodads going.
Yeah.
Why not? I mean, if the cost isn't tremendous, why not offer a couple different solutions?
Yeah.
So I don't think it's a bad.
I think the thing is, whenever you make an adventure, you've got to make versions for both.
Yeah.
But then again, I guess the lightweight one is just to supply the maps.
At Wizard scale, I don't know how expensive that is.
Yeah, it's just a map and tokens.
Yeah.
That's fair. Yeah. But the 3D one isn't. It's that's a lot.
No, the 3D, like imagine building. I mean,
yeah.
and I'll tell you, because I'm really kind of like, I don't really care, right? Like I like playing at my table, or I like doing theater of the mind, and I like talking. But boy, you give me a 3D version of Castle Ravenloft, and I don't know how I would not want to play it that way. Like, like those really super vertical, totally integrated dungeons where you can follow the stair. Like, finally, I can figure out what that elevator does. After 30 years of not having any idea how that whole thing works, it would be very interesting to see that in Castle Ravenloft. That would be the one that would swing me over, is seeing Castle Ravenloft in 3D.
I think I saw someone made a 3D model of Castle Ravenloft, which was awesome.
The folks over at Dwarven Forge made a Castle Ravenloft or they gave the plans for how to make a Dwarven Forge thing out of Castle Ravenloft, and it was $1,100 per floor.
Wow.
So it was really costly.
Wow.
That's like rent on an actual apartment, like, depending on where you live. But yeah.
Yeah, right. You could actually go
floor,
rent a real castle.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes. Yeah. And talking of expensive things, MCDM.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, I'm gonna
$2 million.
I'm gonna
breaking
buy it back on
records
expensive,
everywhere.
But yeah.
Yeah, the cost per person is not that expensive. The amount of money is a lot.
No, I meant expensive as it has made a lot of money. So
that's fair.
MCDM, they've had $3 million Kickstarters so far.
Yeah.
This is their fourth.
Yeah.
Good
and
man.
$2 million in less than 24 hours.
Yeah.
Nice.
So this is the biggest first day crowdfunding TTRPG thing, including that big Avatar Legends
Really?
one, which did 10 million. This is done twice that on the first day.
Oh my
that did
God.
1.3 million on the first day.
Wow.
This is done over 2. So this is record breaking.
Yeah. I wonder, and we've all been in our Kickstarter minds, and I wonder if the curve is the same. So they're doing it on Backerkit, which is also a really big deal. Like it's I think it's the largest Backerkit crowdfunding campaign that's happened.
Yeah. I think Backerkit put out a thing saying that as well.
Yeah, and I wonder if the curve is the same. Like, so there's that kind of weird Kickstarter curve, although that's been changing, over the past couple of years. The bathtub, the sort of bathtub-shaped curve where you get a lot of money in the first 3 days, a lot of money in the last 3 days.
It's more a reverse J now because the
yeah, right, because there's so much prep
Yeah.
ahead of time with the follower thing. Yeah, right. It's like sort of reverse J. So I wonder if the curve is different on Backerkit, but we'll see in 28 days, I guess.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
I think it will be front slanted because they had something like 10,000 pre-launch followers waiting, and they do a massive job of galvanizing their community to be waiting.
Yeah, what an audience!
Chomping at the bit. I know. It's
Isn't that amazing? Like, it's I was just thinking about, like, beyond the company that they've got, which is impressive, right? They've got a lot of full-time staff. They've got really smart people. My friend James Intercasso is like, a lead designer over there, and it's just amazing. But just to think of regardless of like what their company does, because they don't produce a lot of products, the size of their community and being able to galvanize that community towards something like this is enormous. It's pretty unique. Like it's really.
I think it all hinges off that YouTube channel, doesn't it?
I guess. I mean, I don't know. I guess it does. But you're always like, something this big, there's probably multiple reasons. But that I think is clearly a big one. Kind of that self-generating, kind of a self-generating, growing group. It's really impressive.
What's interesting is one of the stretch goals on here is a virtual tabletop.
Yes.
This got some drama in my Discord server.
That's not a small thing to do.
No.
What's the drama? What's the gossip?
Well, the drama was like, are they, and I don't agree with it, but the drama was like, are they, that any kind of software, I don't know if you guys are aware of this, but like any kind of software is hard. Right? Yeah. Like building any kind of sort of software application for that. I was kidding about the thing because I know you guys are building a friend world. Level Up Advanced 5e. So any kind of software thing is always risky. Like I think it's riskier than publishing physical books, which is also really risky, right? I think I'm this is sort of a secondary quote, but there was something about how much money MCDM lost on some of their initial books because of misjudging the price of physical manufacturing and shipping. Like they ended up
some of the miniatures,
and maybe it might have been, maybe it was the miniatures, but I thought I had heard that Matt Colville talked about this on his Twitch chat that like they had some of these enormous $1 million Kickstarters that lost almost as much, right? That lost money, and they had to make that up elsewhere in the company.
I had no idea. Wow.
But when you throw software in there, it's a whole different ball field, and there's so many like wrecks of software Kickstarters that just collapsed and never came to anything. And my argument here is they're saying like, look, we want to put money towards that VTT, but you're paying for the books, right? Like when you go to when you go to Backerkit and you're backing it, there's nothing in any of your selections that says, oh, and you may get a VTT thing.
They actually say the VTT might not happen as well.
Right, and they say the VTT might not happen.
They very clearly say this is not a promise.
So I feel like they've hedged their bet correctly. In the same way that I think they said, hey, when we reach a certain level in one of our Kickstarters, we'll do a live stream. Like Matt Colville built a whole studio to do a live stream game.
Yeah.
And that wasn't really like, you weren't expecting to get unique videos or anything like that. It was, you were buying the book and that's where the money was going to go. So I think it's, when I first heard about it, because like I was not looking at the Backerkit page, I was just listening to people on my Discord server talking about it, and they were like, oh, they're saying it's a VTT, and I'm like, ooh, danger, Will Robinson, right? Like that, and then it was like, oh wait, no, they're saying if they get enough money, they will work on one, not it's one of the rewards you're going to get.
Yes,
and that's a big difference to me. Like,
It also depends on how complex they want this VTT to be. I mean, if they want to bake in all of the rules and have it rolling all the dice for you.
I mean, that's what they said. That's what Matt said. Matt said that their intention is they want to have a VTT where you don't have to do any of the math, that you can just click your attack and damage rolls and everything is happening and all the integration is there.
They say they have a prototype, so...
Yeah, and they felt like none of the existing VTTs could do it.
And there's a lot of them.
Really? I was about to say 40. None of them. There's so many.
They said that none of it had like the level of smoothness or the level of integration that they wanted, so they're rolling their own.
Oh wow!
I mean, one thing that's kind of neat about MCDM is that they do this kind of thing. That they are not they're not conservative about their approach. If they're doing Arcadia, they're all in on Arcadia. If they're when they try this stuff, they die. I mean, just doing a whole new RPG that's not even remotely 5e based after having just had a huge Kickstarter for Flea Mortals, which is 5e based. That's a big shift, and they don't mind making those big shifts. So. It scared the hell out of me if I was there, but I'm not, so I can enjoy it.
It's clearly working.
I can enjoy it,
if their virtual tabletop is better than all the rest and is really smooth and does the things they want, that could be a whole new business model, because then surely other people would be like, hey, can we get in on that? Because, like, running a virtual tabletop platform is a whole other business, really, than
very specifically
RPGs.
Customized to their game, though, or not.
No, that's true.
So, and they did say licensing wise, because they've kind of talked about what they were going to do with the licensing on stuff like Flea Mortals and stuff like that. But this one, they said they definitely want other people to be able to make stuff for it, make money for it, and not necessarily need MCDM's permission to do so. But they're looking at more like a community license than they are something like a full SRD. So they pointed at Shadowdark's license, which Kelsey Dion over at Shadowdark did, which was essentially that. We want you to be able to write Shadowdark stuff. You don't need our permission to do so, but the rules are not open. Like, you can't reproduce the stuff we make.
Well,
you can build off of the stuff we make, which is different than SRD.
We talk about SRDs and stuff. I mean, we'll probably get on this a little bit later, but there's been a discussion on my forums coming up about whether or not, I think it was prompted by something Ben Riggs said.
This was on Facebook.
An D&D historian.
Right.
We said it initially on Facebook, and then it kind of spread all over the internet. But about will Wizard of the Coast make a new SRD and OGL for the 2024 rulebooks?
Right.
My thought on that is, if they did, it's only symbolic, because they don't to make products compatible with the 24 or any version of D&D, to be honest, except for maybe 4th edition. You don't need a new SRD, unless you're planning on actually reprinting the rules. The D&D core rules.
Well, that's
you don't really need it.
So I have sort of like my honor take, which is you kind of said you were going to, so I wish you would follow through with what you said you were going to do. But they've been changing the language on the website about it. They have like the community update section of D&D Beyond, and the language gets more and more fuzzy and is like, we want to make sure that the future rules are fully compatible with the existing SRD. And you're like, so you could just say they are and you've accomplished it.
Yes,
right? You don't have to do anything at all and just claim success and you're done. And that feels disingenuous.
I don't feel like an SRD would actually do anything, though.
Well, so I'll tell you where it would, and that's and not to dive into the topic we're going to talk about, but having other digital tools being able to pull in the new stuff.
I suppose, yes.
So like monsters are an example.
That's the reprinting thing I said, though, isn't it? Basically, whether it's a book or a tool,
right.
Yeah.
It's actually right. It's just
sort of one thing you wouldn't get.
Sort of in a different format. That like a lot. I mean, so Adam Bradford over at Demiplane did this, and everyone else has taken the SRD and integrated it with their digital tool set. And they would either have to rewrite all of the monsters themselves in potentially a different way, or just live with the old 2014 version of the monsters while, the new good monsters are only available on Beyond. So, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, when it's just numbers, it's not an awful, when it's a hit point 60, it's not really something they could,
I think it's, if you look at the monster design in Monsters of the Multiverse compared to the original 2014 monsters, the design is pretty different. And I wasn't a huge fan of the new design, and now I am. I kind of changed. This is a lot easier. And and it is sort of like they took the next step. So like if you look at you look at the 2014 monster manual and you look at like spellcasters, all their spells are just in a big block, and you have to remember what Fireball does. And then like the Monsters Menagerie has the spells in there, but they're still the actual spells, but they're spelled out with the math and everything, so you don't have to go look them up. And then Wizards has gone to, no, we don't even use spells anymore. Instead, we have spell-like abilities, like Arcane Blast, that do things. And as a guy who likes simplicity and monster design, I kind of like the Arcane Blast method. But it means that, if you're building another tool that is supposedly using modern 5e stuff, it's not going to be as modern as what you would find on Beyond if you don't have access to that, so... I mean, I think they should. Well, I think they said they certainly gave the impression that that's what they were going to do, and I think whether it was a marketing thing on their side of trying to build back a reputation that they damaged severely earlier in the year, and now they feel like, well, now people love us again, so we don't have to do it because nobody really remembers, and everyone just wants to move on.
At this point in the whole open gaming sort of meta crisis, as it were, stealing a term from Doctor Who. I think that even if they didn't, someone will just come along and just rewrite it in their own words and put that out.
Yeah, and I probably and hopefully, I mean, Shard actually did this over at Shard because they didn't have all of the subclasses that were available for the 2014, because the 2014 SRD doesn't have it only has one subclass per class, and they're the most generic one. Is they just made their own that are very similar to the ones that.
Well, that's exactly what we did, isn't it, for Level Up?
Yeah,
exactly the same thing.
I think they were even closer to the originals than you were. Yeah. Like you actually built new classes and new class features and combat dice and everything else, but they just kind of said, well, we're just make our own Battle Master. Right? And I mean, so somebody could certainly do that, but it's that means going through and making 300 new monsters or updating 300 new monsters as opposed to just being able to pull it.
Out there would enjoy doing that, There are people that would happily do that.
Yeah.
Just as a personal project, they'd probably do it, and then they'll just share it. That sort of thing happens all the time.
Yeah,
I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, I think you're definitely right though that the first 5.1 SRD being out there is the important one, and everything else can kind of be built off of that, unless they do an entirely different system.
I mean, and if you're only wanting to make compatible stuff, you don't even need that. You can use the 3.x one.
Yeah.
I mean, to say that, there's a goblin with 7 hit points or in your adventure or whatever, all this stuff, you don't need the 5.1 SRD at all to do that. All the terminology is there. The name of the classes is in there. The names of the monsters. Maybe advantage, disadvantage might be the one thing.
Yeah, and I don't think you can get sued over saying the word advantage and disadvantage.
Yeah, well...
But other than that, everything's in there.
Who knows?
All the terminology you need.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Anyway, we'll see, I guess. I mean, I would feel very, very comfortable making compatible material for one D&D.
My feelings, I think we should push them on it, right? I think we should... They said they were going to, and I think it would be helpful if they did. So, I plan to bring up the fact that they're not. Now, they could also say, and if I were them, I would have told you this, so hopefully they're not listening. Oh, we're getting to it. We haven't forgotten.
I am sure they're not listening.
We're just very busy. Right. And then, who knows? Because it took years for the one to come out for 5th, right? It was 2016,
It was a while, wasn't it?
Yeah, it came out in 2016, and it came out the same time that the DMs Guild came out. They both came out at the same time.
Yeah.
Well, there you go.
Yeah. But I mean, we'll get onto that because I think we both agree that they've effectively killed the OGL anyway.
Oh yeah, OGL's long gone.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but we'll get onto that. We'll get onto that a bit later because that's our kind of big topic to talk about. I wanted to go quickly back to MCDM though.
Me too.
Because it's interesting.
Are we wanting to talk? Are we wanting to talk about? Because one thing I want to talk about is the price, which is what I find interesting.
Both. We can talk about both things
because the pricing is $40 for the PDF and $70 for the hardcover. Mm-hmm. And I know a lot of people are like, oh, that's really expensive. But clearly it's not too expensive that people haven't bought in. And I think that's really interesting for the industry because I think there's always a fear that I think we know that books and PDFs are not priced as they should be to make it profitable for publishers. but you feel like you have to price them a certain way because people are used to it with what D&D set the bar at. So I think it's I'm kind of excited that something is priced a bit more where I feel it should be for the level of work that's going into it, and people are buying it. Because I think that's always the fear as an indie publisher, that if you price it at the point where you're making something profitable, you're like, will everyone look at it and go, no, that's too much. So I'm really glad that the prices are 40 and 70.
That's one of the reasons it's so hard to make a living in RPGs and everyone's paid so little, is because it's very, very hard to sell things at the actual value that
where everyone gets
really
a cut.
are.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of a cheap bastard, and like when I look at it, it's like, well, $40. Well, that's a 400-page player's book, and it's $65 for both the Heroes and Monsters book together in PDF, which is the one I backed it at, right?
Yeah,
and and that seems very reasonable to me for the for the size and the quality of the work that I have seen coming out of MCDM on this. I think that is pretty reasonable.
They do pay their writers really well, like 25 cents a word.
They do,
or something.
Yeah. I can attest to that.
Goes to that. Yeah. So it's not cash grabby.
It's going places. And they pay their salary employees are also paid well. I probably pretty high in the industry, I think.
Yeah.
So the one area though, which I've seen myself, and I think is an issue, is when players' guides are too expensive for individual players to want to buy it themselves.
Yeah.
And the issue there is, like, especially if you're trying a game out.
Yeah.
And you're like, I kind of, and you're like, they know D&D and they they probably have no problem buying a player's handbook. But like, if you're like, oh yeah, I would like to try MCDM's RPG, everybody go spend $40. And then you're like, you play 2 sessions and like, it wasn't really for me. Right. I feel like it would be nice if there was a lightweight, and I'm not saying like for this particular, but I've seen it for other games. For example, Shadowdark doesn't have a separate player's guide for Shadowdark. It's all one book, but they have a free quick start rule. So you can at least send the free rules to your players to say, when it comes to just playing, this is the rule set.
Yeah, starter sets and quick starts are really important. And we really do run into that problem because the buy-in for our game is a lot.
Yeah, I just bought my second Adventurer's Guide like 2 days ago.
I mean, it's 3 big hardcover books.
I had to take a loan out. I'm just kidding.
We appreciate it.
It was actually very reasonable. It was, because it was like $60, but free shipping in the US.
In the US,
and it's 600 pages.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's huge, right?
Yeah. And when the zombie apocalypse happens, you have a bludgeoning weapon, and it will
it'll stop a bullet. Yeah. I mean, I do have that issue though. That like so my next campaign that I want to run, I want to use A5E, and so I bought a second copy of A5E that I plan to share around. That we have like 2 table copies that are moving around back and forth.
Yeah.
But I can't expect or demand that my players all drop $60.
Yeah.
When they might try and be like, I like it, but I think I'd rather just play 5e. Right? I don't know what the reaction is going to be.
And that's also why we have A5e.tools, because all the rules are on there. So you could just go to the website and figure out what you're doing from there.
And you have your own SRD. So I could say, here's all the rules in PDF.
Yeah.
Right?
And the starter set has a nice little 32-page rules which upgrade your game, which is quite nice as well.
But I think this is an industry thing, because I wonder how many tables that the GM just sends their copy of the PDF to everybody. I think.
So can I ask you guys a question?
Yeah.
How do you feel if somebody shared the PDF using something like Google Drive where they could limit downloads? So you could say, like, if I can give access to view the PDF through Google Drive to my player, to one could share it with their players.
So
as publishers, how do you feel about that?
So I've got 2 feelings on that. One is, I don't care, fine. If it's sharing it with your group and it's private, personal use, fine. Don't stick it up for distribution for anyone to come along and get.
Right. Don't put it up on a website.
That's bad. But if you're sharing it with your group, it's fine. I also think we sell the PDF for like £10.
Do you?
So,
no, you don't. Well, the adventures.
Yeah, I thought it was. I thought it was higher than that.
Was it now 20 now?
It's 20. It's always been 19. But yeah, $20. Memories of Holdenshire.
In that case, I take that back. But if we were selling it for £10, I would say,
yeah, right. In that case, I would, right. I would feel like, hey, picking up your own copy is very reasonable. Yeah.
I mean, we've kind of like considered the idea of group copies.
Yeah.
And it would just be an honour system at that point. And it would just be say, look, if you want to buy this and share it with 6 people, just pay an extra £10. And, we're not going to check, but, if you wanted to do that, that would be appreciated.
Just to correct you guys, it's $25. I guess
we're
you said
going
20,
Great
you said
British
20
pounds.
quid. Yeah. Sorry.
Great British pounds.
American.
Yes. No.
Yeah.
No, the thing is, I think the main thing for me is the amount of work and effort you have to go into to making sure people can't distribute PDFs is more than we as an indie publisher would do. And
I don't think there is anything you can do, really.
There must be things people do, I'm sure.
You can watermark it
I don't know.
and stuff, yeah.
But
people get around it.
Yeah, that's what I mean. People get around it. What's the point? But one thing I think is the biggest issue in all indie publishing is onboarding new people. So if it's not D&D, just getting new people to try your game, removing any barriers of entry. So yeah, if you're trying something out with your table and be like, hey, I found this cool system, let's try it. Letting people play it, showing the character sheet, if you've bought it as the GM, absolutely fine. Because I think the idea is that if your table really likes it, and you all start playing it, they're probably going to buy the Adventurers book eventually. Yeah. But it's when they know that they like it and that they want it. So they're not going to have this bad taste in their mouth of, I spent, £50, Great British pounds, not US dollars, on this book, and now it's just sat there. I don't want people to have that attitude to our things, so...
But again, like Mike said, that's where quick starts and starter sets come in. That's what they're for, isn't it? It's to do that, and then
and I think even Wizards is doing it, right? Wizards now has that free, what's the name of the adventure? Perils of Pinebrook, right? For kids, it's meant to be sent out to teachers, but it's completely free and it has a whole system ready to play, so you can get people playing D&D for nothing.
Well, you can download the D&D basic rules for nothing anyway.
And you can download the basic rules for nothing, and you can build characters and Beyond for nothing.
Yeah.
Right?
So to briefly answer your question, Mike, personally, I'm not annoyed if people share their PDF copy as the GM with their party when they're trying out their system with our games.
Yeah.
So. I think within a group, it's no different than buying a hardcover and passing that around the table, is it? Really.
Yeah, the one difference that I've made is because Google Drive lets you lock down a PDF so people can't download their own copy. There isn't a risk that if you have a player you don't know particularly well who downloads their copy and they're giving it to their friends, this prevents second order spreading. Right?
Yeah. I mean, I don't really want that.
But it gives everybody the ability to still read through the whole rulebook.
I think we're quite lucky. Maybe it's just our audience and maybe I'm naive, but a lot of people that play our games are kind of generally quite reasonable people, and they'll want to support something that they like. So if they've been playing a game for a while and they've been enjoying it, at some point they might be like, I'll drop some money on buying the PDF or something to support it. So, but maybe that's me being very, very naive.
That's because we're such lovely, lovely, lovely people.
Well, I think we are. And I sometimes think you get back the energy you match. There's always going to be people that, game the system and do stuff, but I think that's no matter what you do. So
I just don't think you worry about it. It's going to be a minority of people. They're going to do it whatever you do. There's nothing you can do to stop them. Okay, fine.
Yeah,
we'll just carry on making books.
And we give the rules away for free, mostly on a5eva.tools anyway. So it'd be weird for us to be really precious about that, I think.
And again, the PDFs, the SRD PDFs, right?
Yeah, exactly.
There that have pretty much everything in them too. So.
Anyway, MCDM. I want to talk about the game itself a little bit.
Yeah.
I don't know much about it. I know, there's people there that have watched lengthy videos and playtest documents and all sorts of stuff and know an awful lot more about this game than I do. Mm-hmm. I pretty much know what I saw on the Kickstarter page. That's about it. But it's interesting. So it's very much combat focused, it looks like.
Yeah.
They kind of said, we're not really doing dungeon crawling or exploration in this.
Right.
It's really about heroes fighting monsters.
Cool.
It's quite tactical. I think they're going quite deep into the combat side of it.
Mm-hmm.
But they've also kind of taken aim at sort of D&D a little bit.
Ooh.
About how they're getting rid of sacred cows from the 1970s. I don't know what that means exactly.
Such as?
But my guess is
ability scores.
Oh, okay.
Well,
I don't know if I'm just making up a sacred cow. I don't know if that... I presume they're not because it's a 2d6 based system, so I have a feeling whatever they're doing.
I'll tell you one thing they are doing is when you attack, you don't make an attack roll. You automatically hit and you just do damage. You just roll the damage.
Interesting.
So that is very much a departure from what people traditionally understand D20 fantasy to be.
Yeah.
This isn't D20, obviously, but...
I ran a game that did that, and my players were really confused for the first few sessions, because they just couldn't... Because I was like, when you always hit, it's always successful, it's just how much you do. How much
damage you do, yeah.
And that was... It's a real culture shift.
Mm.
Sure.
Yeah, I think it's definitely speed the game up. I don't have a problem with that at all in the slightest. I think that would work quite well. I mean, I assume there's things like monsters that can be resistant to that damage. It's not like, a house cat can take down a dragon eventually just by tapping it a million times.
Although I like that story though. So
so I assume, there's more to it than that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I guess we'll see.
Yep.
We'll see.
But I guess it goes two ways, doesn't it? So if the adventurer always hits, I guess that means the monsters get to hit you too.
I guess, yeah.
Yeah, I haven't dug into the system too much. I don't know.
No, I haven't really. I just looked at the Kickstarter.
I do talk about like fighting against the grain. The intro video, which typically like Kickstarter recommends that you aim for like a minute or a minute and a half, is 51 minutes long.
What?
So, yeah, the top video on the Backerkit is a 51-minute video.
Oh my goodness!
So like, he's really like, I don't care what you tell me the video size is. We're doing 51 minutes.
Look, they launch.
Yeah, and it doesn't appear to be
on
hurting
the wrong
them.
day of the week at the wrong time of the year. They're just like
at the right December. Who launches a Kickstarter in December
on a Thursday? Yeah, but they're doing. We're going to do it, and guess what? It worked.
Yeah, right.
I guess if you have enough of a following, you can do what you want.
Yeah.
We don't unfortunately have a parallel universe where they launch the same one in March with a 1-minute video. We can see if the dollar on
and it made 10
Kickstarter
million on the first day.
Yeah, we don't have a way to know whether or not it would have been even bigger.
But I think this pretty much.
They seem to be doing just fine.
Yeah,
this will put Matt Colville as like the top. It's going to be the king of TTRPG crowdfunding after this. I think.
Yeah.
I think Avatar's going to be knocked off its perch.
Yeah.
Maybe not on the one campaign, but in total.
Knocked off a perch is giving this idea that you can only have one or the other, though. And like, there's still like Avatar's in Target, right? Like you can, so there can just be big RPGs.
No, there can be only one.
Right. There's a false competitive nature there. It's like,
fair. I mean,
the bubble gets bigger. It's not that one is eating the other.
Human nature to compare these things, though, isn't
I guess,
it? And I don't know why, but I just kind of root this stuff on. I just wanted to do, and it makes no difference to me.
Yeah.
I don't get anything out of it.
No,
but I'm just like, now I really wanted to do 10 million. Why?
Yeah.
Why do I want that? Why do I care? But I do, and I'm kind of rooting for them to do that.
You guys brought something up on another previous show that I thought was also something that anytime we're talking about comparing Kickstarters, it's way more valuable to compare the number of backers than it is the amount of money.
Yeah.
Right. That if you want to see actually how successful one Kickstarter is compared to another Kickstarter, the total backers is a much better gauge of which one is more popular than another.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
because you can easily lose money by having an expensive, like Wormwood famously had like the largest Kickstarter for their gaming table and lost millions of dollars. Like they lost a ton. Now they lost it by buying big giant pieces of machinery that they used to make the table, but they still, like, I remember the guy who ran Wormwood on his video, everyone else is cheering and he's like, you're looking at 7 million like it's a good thing. Right? And his whole point was like, that's 7 million in debt. Right. That's that we owe that in product. That's not cash floating into our bank account.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's an important thing. When you see a Kickstarter and you see all that money, that money is going towards fulfilling the product. It's like,
you owe that.
It's not
that's
profit.
Money you
it's
owe.
Not profit. Yeah.
Right. That's product you owe. Right.
Yeah.
And maybe if you're lucky and everything works out, you make money on it.
Yeah. If you do $1 million as a Kickstarter, that doesn't make you a millionaire.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
But it does very, very briefly. Well, the money very briefly goes into your bank account and then goes out.
Right.
If
you're anything like me,
this is
if
glorious
you're anything
week.
like me, no, it's not that glorious because you're like, I do not want to pay taxes on this.
Right.
So it's like, I need to get this money out of this account as fast as I can so I don't have to pay taxes on it. Because if I have to pay taxes as net, that's a real problem.
Yeah. Well, good luck to them. I mean, I haven't backed it.
Yeah, I think it's fantastic.
Mm-hmm. It looks amazing. I haven't backed it.
I backed the PDF.
I'm trying to just kind of dial back on buying stuff.
I buy everything.
I do, but then I don't use it. And half the time I don't even read it now. I used to at least read it.
I do have that.
And now I don't even read it. I don't have time.
I skim the first 3 pages and then file it in my giant PDF library.
Yeah.
That looks nice.
But I like support. I mean, we all love this industry.
Yeah.
I love supporting
They're supporting people as well.
I have reached my budget for this month. I had to set myself a monthly budget for buying different RPGs because.
Oh wow.
Yeah. And so I kind of buy stuff, and then when I hit it, I'm like, well, I'm done. So, and I went to Dragon Meet last weekend, and I bought stuff there. So, because some really cool, smaller creators that I wouldn't have found online otherwise. So I bought their stuff then and there, because I was like, I don't know if I'll find it again. But then that means this week I'm like, there's nothing left in the in the RPG fund this month. But yeah.
Yeah. Right, what else we got? We got a bit of Shadowrun news.
We do, yes.
Yeah, which I'm not entirely sure why they're doing this.
What do you mean?
Catalyst Game Lab.
They're putting out the old one, right?
Yeah, reprinting a first edition of Shadowrun, which is not the popular edition. The second edition is. But secondly, you can actually buy it on print on demand at Drive-Thru RPG for $11.99 from them right now anyway.
Oh, I didn't know that. That does make less sense to me now. But, to summarise it, so they're reprinting first edition. It's been out of print technically for 35 years. Oh, no. Was it released 35 years ago?
88, whenever that was. Was that 35 years? I don't know.
Oh my gosh. This RPG is like almost the same age as me. Anyway, yeah, so when it was printed...
well, as we all know, I'm only 36, so...
I thought you were 25.
Been
running EM World since you were 5 years old.
Right.
So impressive. Right. Oh, fair enough. Yeah, so is this just you can get it reprinted in a high-quality offset print run, or...
I guess so,
Are they doing, new arts, or is it everything is it everything exactly the same?
Don't know. I assume it's a literal reprint, but I don't know.
I'm just reading.
It's funny. I played the Shadowdark computer games, which I liked a lot. And I remember whenever I went to my local game shop as a kid, I would see Shadowrun on the shelf. But I always played other stuff. I never really got into Shadowrun.
Well, as I recall, the first edition was mechanically a bit jumbled, and second edition cleaned that up an awful lot, as I recall. But bear in mind, it has been many, many, many years since I played Shadowrun. But I don't think first edition is the one that people liked, as I recall. I think it was second edition. Well, I might be wrong. I don't know. I'm sure they know better than I do.
I guess it's just a nostalgia play, because if you collect them,
it could be a coffee table RPG.
It's that classic cover. I mean, I recognise that cover.
I don't...
I mean, I've got it on the shelf behind me there somewhere.
Yeah, but, I don't think they're doing new art or anything, so they're keeping it purely as nostalgia. And it does look so 80s, I'm looking at it, it's such an 80s interpretation of the future, which is amazing.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
No, fair enough. Nice.
Yeah.
I know some people really don't like print-on-demand books, so I guess it gives them more options, so...
Is that, I suppose, yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
I don't really have anything more to say about that. I don't know.
No, it's a thing that is. It is a thing that is.
A thing that is happening.
Yeah. It is a thing that.
I have another thing that's happening though. Talking about being cheap and money. If people wanted to try Pathfinder, there's a humble bundle for $25 or something where you can get a whole load of Pathfinder stuff. Second edition. So it's a good time to jump in because I know loads of people have been thinking about diving in.
The second edition, or was that the new remaster stuff? Or was it the
second edition? Pathfinder second edition.
Okay.
So it's got you have $5 tier. It's got the beginner box and the player's guide and stuff. And 25 adds the player's guide, the game mastery guide, the bestiary, the 3 parts of Age of Ashes, a whole load of stuff. So yeah, and it's available till the end, close to the end of the year, 28th of December. So.
Oh, yeah, legacy bundle, they're calling it. So, yeah.
Also, maybe if you're somebody that's been borrowing your GM's copy of the PDS, as we discussed, and you would like to support the game because you enjoy it, here is a good way to support it and give to charity at the same time. So that's on Humble, so you can check that out. I just thought that's quite a nice discount for all that stuff.
Yeah. What else we got? We're running out of news now, aren't we? We're getting there.
Oh, I've got something else as well. So do you remember previously this year I can't remember what it was, but we talked about Project Blue Moon, the anime-inspired RPG by Talzorian Games.
Not a thing that I remember.
Okay, well, we did.
You said the word anime, which means I wiped it from my mind.
Wow, okay. That's a strong opinion.
I can't watch cartoons. I cannot see cartoons.
We've had more information about Project Blue Moon. So it's going to be called Shadow Scar, coming out next year in 2024. And it's Cody Pondsmith, who did The Witch RPG and Cyberpunk Red, is working on the game, and we've got some artwork previews, and it's just looking really cool, and it's got all the reference points we mentioned before, Demon Slayer, Cowboy Bebop, Naturo. So if you're a fan of anime and that sort of thing, the artwork alone is very beautiful. But Dicebreaker did a big article on it, going into detail, and all the quotes and information on there. But it's coming out next year, and they got the more details and the full name of it. But Shadow Scar coming out sometime 2024. Don't have a date for you, but as soon as we get it, we'll let you know. But I know a lot of people are going to be excited for this because I know there's so many people that love a really high quality anime art style, and I think they're trying to incorporate this into the gameplay somehow, that vibe. I'm not sure how, I don't have the details, but I know a lot of people love this, so a lot of people will be excited for it.
Cool.
I know you're not one of those people, Russ, but not everything's for you.
Yep. So it makes the hobby wide and interesting.
Exactly.
Lots of different ways.
Your favourite video game, Jess?
Baldur's Gate 3?
That you've now played 17 times all the way through.
No, I haven't played 17 times all the way through. That's ridiculous.
I love Baldur's Gate 3.
Oh my god. Anyway. But yeah, sorry, Russ, you were saying.
It's won some awards.
It's won all the awards.
Yeah, there's a surprise. Yeah.
It's won lots of awards, yes. So at the Game Awards, it won 6 trophies.
Wow.
Which is pretty good going, I guess.
It's got Game of the Year, didn't it?
6 different awards. It was nominated for 8. It took home Game of the Year, Best RPG, Best Multiplayer, Best Community Support, Best Performance, and Player's Voice Award, which is the one voted for by the public.
Yeah. That tracks.
Yep.
I have nothing more to add. Yeah, fair. Well done.
Okay.
Deserved. I'm very happy with that.
Right, anyway, that's Baldur's Gate 3.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
God, I can't remember which one it was. 3.
It's a really great game. And I hope it brings new people into the hobby, because I think it has the opportunity to do that. Because it's going to make people really comfortable with the concept of, tabletop RPG.
Yeah. They should include advertising in it. Right at the end, they say, "Did you enjoy this? Go and buy this book."
Don't you want to do more with your friends? Yeah.
They should have it right
It is the kind of thing that, like, when I think about what I want, as though I have any control over this, what I want Wizards to be doing, this is what I want Wizards to be doing. Like, movies, AAA video games, postage stamps. Like, I want them to take their brand all over places that don't typically see it to bring people into the hobby. And I think they've had 2 video games in the last couple years. One we don't even remember, and this one, right? And I'm really glad that one of them is this big AAA hit where I was having lunch with some friends of mine. They're all video gamers, and we're like, "What's the game of the year?" And they were like, "We can't imagine it's not Baldur's Gate 3." What else would it be? And I'm like, it was so big a game compared to everything else that came out that it wasn't even really a consideration of what the next game would, what game.
I will get back to it. Anyway.
Moving on to more news beyond Baldur's Gate.
There can't be more news. We've covered so much news.
I know, and in December...
We've done like an hour of news now.
Okay, last thing. Steve Jackson Games announced their entire 2024 release schedule.
Did they give some dates and then take them back?
Wow,
Now that's just petty.
What a bitchy thing to say, Russ. On a Friday afternoon.
I don't know what you mean.
Okay, well, listen back to this, you will understand. So they've shown all their new titles that's coming out. They have given some dates for things, and they might change them. But they've said, like an August release. They've given the months, so not been too specific. But yeah, so they've got new titles. There's Car Wars, Grogo the card game, Express, the Railroad card games. They've got H.P. Lovecraft's The Whispers of Darkness. They've got Bestiary. There's loads of stuff going on. And they got reprints of games, and of course, new Munchkin expansions. But as we've been talking about the news for a long time, and for some reason, Russ is in a sassy mood, there's a full article about it that can go into more detail, but yeah, the whole release schedule is out now.
I read somewhere about a Munchkin Shadowrun as well. Yeah, there's Kickstarter coming for Munchkin Shadowrun. I wonder if that's why they're re-releasing that book. Just to sort of like go alongside it.
That's a good point, maybe.
Beats me.
Maybe. Synergy type of thing.
But there we go. And that is the last bit of news I have.
Okay. Well, I'm out of news. Have you got any news that we haven't mentioned, Mike?
I do not. That covers everything I've been looking at.
Oh, we've got another Kickstarter coming. Shocker. When do we ever not have another Kickstarter coming? But the pre-launch page is up for our Game Pass Gazette annual for 2023. So you can go on there and click on the button and Kickstarter will tell you when it launches, which is January, I think. Is it January?
Yeah, we're planning on doing that in the new year, just so we can fulfill Vault Splinter Souls first, and also we'll be fulfilling the What's Odd and New box set in January. So we just want to get them to people before we start doing something else.
Yeah. Right, I think we're done then. I think we're done with the news. There's no more news.
Excellent.
Aha! An artificer! I wonder what wonders they have to show me.
Oh, welcome, brave knight, to my humble workshop. Are you here to marvel at my spectacular inventions?
Oh, indeed I am, noble artificer. Oh, please show me your latest creations.
Very well. Well, this incredible innovation will, I think, completely revolutionise transport.
Intriguing. What could it be? A steam-powered airship, perhaps? A wagon which travels underwater? A fantastical teleportation device? A vehicle which is larger on the inside than the outside?
No. None of those things. Prepare to be amazed by my...
Well, don't keep me waiting. What is it?
Behold! The carriageless horse.
What?
Well, it's a horse, but it has no carriage.
But surely that's just a horse.
Well, I see you don't quite comprehend the genius of this technological marvel. You see the horse, yes? It has no carriage.
Yes, I see that, but...
But what, brave adventurer?
Oh, never mind. What else do you have to show me?
I am glad you asked. I am especially proud of this one. So I collaborated with the greatest magi and alchemists of the land to produce... Voila!
A sword? Oh, well, now you have my interest, young inventor. What can it do? Does it perhaps burst into flame? Can it slay a dragon with a single blow? Perhaps it can summon the power of Grayskull.
No. This, my friend, is the latest in weapons-based technology. This is the +0 sword.
What?
It's the sword +0. So, I see you wield a sword +3 yourself.
Well, of course.
Well, this sword is a sword +0.
Well, surely that's just a sword.
+0.
But that's... never mind. Carriageless horses and swords +0. Whatever next? Have you invented the spoon, perhaps? A cunning device to keep the rain from my head?
Oh, wonderful ideas. But no. So my final invention is something that is sure to blow your proverbial mind.
My mind is not proverbial, thank you very much.
Well, that as it may be, but even you will be awed by the sheer genius of this latest discovery.
Very well, artificer. Once more unto the breach, as they say. One last time. Show me your creation. I wait with bated breath.
Very well, my learned friend. Allow me to introduce to you...
Here we go.
The potion of visibility.
What?
I see you are speechless.
A potion of visibility.
Exactly. Potions of invisibility being available on every alchemist shelf, but nobody thought to make this.
but I'm already visible.
How do you mean?
I don't need a potion to make me visible. I'm already visible.
I'm not sure you're, what you're getting at.
The whole point of a potion is to let you do something you couldn't normally do.
Yes, indeed.
But I'm already visible. I mean, you're visible. The horse is visible. Everybody's visible.
Maybe you don't quite understand.
Look. I'm already visible. The carriageless horse is just a horse, and the sword +0 is just a sword. These aren't inventions. They're
what?
Well, are you really an artificer?
Of course I am. Wait, what are you doing? What is that?
Oh, this, my friend, is a true invention. A real marvel of technology.
Well, it looks like a...
Yes, indeed. This is my miniature ballista.
But that's just a crossbow.
Indeed.
Malach the Maleficent here. If, like me, you're enjoying this podcast, please consider subscribing on Patreon for exclusive bonus content every week and the warm, fuzzy feeling of knowing you are helping to keep the show going. Subscribe at patreon.com/Morrus. There, I said it. Can you stop staring at me like that now? The things I do. All right. Don't forget, patreon.com/Morrus. Can I go now?
Right, so our topic is quite a broad one, and it was kind of prompted by, I think the conversation started up when it was announced that a couple, and we mentioned this in last week's show, a couple of third-party products were going up on D&D Beyond. And then the conversation sort of like sprouted up from that, and then it kind of ballooned and spread into a quite a broad sort of topic. So I don't quite know how to summarize it, but it's kind of a topic all about Wizards' plans, their kind of market leader position, and the amount of influence they have in that market, walled gardens, a la sort of Apple's App Store and stuff, open gaming. It's a broad topic. I don't quite know how to summarize it. Let's just talk about it and we'll just see where it goes, shall we?
Sure.
I can throw my core hypothesis that I have in my mind that's been driving my thoughts about this, so this helps.
Do it.
The more that Wizards adds other 5e publishers material to D&D Beyond, the bigger a gravity well D&D Beyond becomes for the 5e TTRPG industry as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
And Wizards has proven that they can't be trusted to act in that community's best interests.
Right. Okay.
Like those. I don't think we can argue about those. Both of those things feel true to me.
I had nothing to rebuttal.
And what that means, or what that leads to, or how that manifests in daily life, is a question.
Yeah. I mean, the reason. So for me, it's kind of they sort of did this, and we went through this in 4E when we were making products for 4E, and the problem was that it was impossible to sell player-facing material.
Yeah.
For 4E.
Yeah.
Because it wouldn't work on the character builder.
Right.
It wasn't on the character builder.
And that was the only real way you could play for 4E. Right.
And people were just, if it's not on the character builder, I'm not interested. I'm not going to, I don't use pen and paper for these characters.
Yep. And
this is kind of, and we've been discovering this is kind of happening also in our space. That people will sort of say, if it's not on D&D Beyond, then I'm not interested. And that's not to say that at the moment people can't sell things that are not on D&D Beyond, because obviously they can, and there are $1 million Kickstarters coming out the wazoo, and we're doing okay, and loads of people are doing okay.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that anyone's in trouble at the moment.
But the material might not be getting used.
And there's that, and also in the long term, it points to the future where perhaps printing third-party books of player-facing material might not be a viable thing that you can do, because people can't use them or won't use them.
Yeah.
Because it's not on D&D Beyond.
I get it, because D&D Beyond is such a useful tool to creating your character. If you're new to D&D, it's all there. It takes you through the steps. Great. And I think so many people are used to using that, and it feels a pain to do, because I think most of us are used to creating our characters using a pen and paper. That's how I do mine. But I don't think that's a majority of D&D players now. I think a lot of D&D players are used to create their character on D&D Beyond, and would struggle to do it the old-fashioned way.
It's a statistic with all kinds of problems from selection bias and everything else. But I did ask, on my YouTube channel, I put up a poll saying, "Hey, do you regularly use D&D Beyond to prepare or run your games?" And 40% said they did. Yeah. So, and I don't, that's of that group.
Yeah.
You could argue, would that be high or low depending on selection bias things? But, hey, close enough. Right?
Yeah.
It's better than my guess.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so I don't know that it's totally pervasive that the majority of players are using D&D Beyond, but 40% is still a lot.
Yeah.
That's almost half of the people that are playing the game are using the one tool to do so.
Yeah.
And it's growing as well.
And it's probably, it's not, right, it's probably
a year ago, D&D Beyond was a third-party product.
That's right.
Now it's fully integrated, Wizards is pushing everyone towards it.
Yeah, right. And it's that push towards it, and ways that they push towards it that, so I kind of have things that they do where I'm like, oh, that's fine. That doesn't make me feel like the hobby is getting more brittle or more focused around one pillar that, we can't necessarily trust. And then things where it's oh no, that's something that could be a problem. An example, I got so many examples, but one example is if they put out the 2024 core books as physical books, and then the one that they update regularly is the D&D Beyond version, and that becomes the errata, right? Any of the updates.
Already the 2014 books on D&D Beyond
are more up to date.
The physical one.
That's
the
right.
Physical ones. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. And there isn't even an errata document for that. The ones that are the updates that they've recently made to the 2014 books, which have mostly been better representation of their language and everything like that. But they did put out errata documents for that same sort of thing for Volos and Mordenkainen's.
And they didn't do that for this. They didn't even tell anybody that they had done this.
I think that's partly
weird.
because they're not going to reprint those books. Come next year.
Right.
They're going to disappear.
Right. Yeah.
So,
well, no, they're not going to disappear because there's millions of them out there.
All right, they'll still be on my shelf,
Like,
but I mean,
right.
I think
and everyone else's shelf.
it will disintegrate off your shelf once the new edition's out.
Yeah.
Right. They put a special enzyme. I think there's a special paper-eating enzyme that they put in the cover glue. That
I assumed it was magic, but you know.
It triggered early, and that's why those books fell apart early.
They send the Pinkertons around. I've heard from
Imagine how expensive that would be. That's very costly. Yeah. They probably thought about it. That's too much money.
They'll just bribe your dog to eat it or something, aren't they?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
But
that's all they've got to do is they've got to make them slightly steak flavored.
Mm-hmm. The dogs eat them. Yeah. You're like, why did my dog eat my book? So there are things where I feel like, you know, and I brought it up earlier, that like movies, TV shows, video games, you know, educational programs, all that stuff is great. Like that gets people into the game. It shows them how awesome it is. And for those that really stick with it, they come in, they're going to do some Googling on YouTube. They're going to search on YouTube. They're going to find stuff, and they're going to see the larger community and see the other stuff that's going out there, and hopefully pick up on some of this and add it to their games, because everybody loves tinkering with this game. We've been tinkering with the game for 50 years, and we're all just offering different ways to tinker the game. But if Wizards kind of steers it towards, well, actually, for our educational program or for the starter set, now it's in D&D Beyond. And don't you want it there? And by the way, you get this other stuff in D&D Beyond. And now they've built it where immediately brand new people are funneled right to this one app.
Right,
and the more you're funneled to it, the more you're going to stay there because you bought your stuff there.
Yeah.
You can't take it out. You can't move it somewhere else. You can't use it in another tool. And you're like, well, why would I ever buy Level Up Advanced 5e when I can't use it in my favorite tool that I grew up with?
Yeah.
You know, in D&D Beyond. And that's where I feel like it's making the hobby brittle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know?
I think there's you want to make some distinctions there between the game, the company, the hobby. And these are different things.
Yes.
And I think it's important, like, the Wizards indisputably owns D&D, the IP.
Yeah.
Correct.
The hobby, I see, is a different thing.
Yeah.
It's not the IP.
Yeah.
It is the act of playing the game.
Even
the hobby of playing D&D as opposed to the hobby of RPGs.
Right.
The hobby of playing D&D specific. They're, you know, they are kind of like I don't even say there's stewardship of that. Stewardship of the IP, certainly. Not of the hobby itself.
Correct. I don't even like using the term third-party publisher anymore.
No,
right?
I don't like it.
I say 5th edition publisher, right?
I've never liked it.
They're all 5th edition publishers. Well, particularly, like, you are not a third-party publisher. Right?
No,
you have your own game, right?
I mean, if we are, then Pathfinder is. You know what I mean?
That's right. None of these are third-party publishers. They are publishers, and even in the 5th edition world, right now, the way I like to envision it is Wizards is a publisher of 5th edition products, like we all are. And
and their one is called Dungeons and Dragons.
That's right. Theirs is called Dungeons and Dragons. And when you put a book, if I put Dungeon to Drakkenheim and I put Descent into Avernus next to each other on my desk, they're kind of similar products. The fact that one company is, 200 times bigger than the other doesn't matter when I'm looking at two physical books that are sitting in my table.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
But I mean, it doesn't help. Well, when it doesn't help, I mean, you got to give them kudos because they've tried to do this before. That's kind of been a goal in the past, and they've made stabs at digital tools like 2 or 3 times over the last sort of 20 odd years. D&D Beyond, finally, they've got it right.
Well, because they bought it.
They saw something out there that was
they didn't
perfect.
Build it.
Yeah.
Right.
But D&D Beyond, you can't say it's not a good product.
It is. And if it
really
weren't good, I kind of wish it wasn't. Because if it weren't good, we wouldn't have a problem. Right? But because it's really good, like I have players who've been playing this game forever, and it's hard dragging them away from D&D Beyond to try some other stuff. And they know, like they've been doing this a long time. But D&D Beyond's really easy.
I think for me, there's a number of different roles that Wizard of the Coast takes, and some of them I don't think sit comfortably with each other. Is kind of the problem. And one of them is that if you're the market leader and you're the brand owner, but also if you end up being the primary retailer, for you pretty much have control of the entire market, and you can literally decide who succeeds and who doesn't on a win.
That's exactly right.
And that is my problem. I mean, there's a reason we haven't got stuff on DM's Guild, and the reason that is when DM's Guild started, they had that Guild Adepts, Adepts program.
Right.
And I thought, right, so I put a monster book on DM's Guild.
Yep.
And my competitor puts a monster book on GM's Guild. And then Wizard of the Coast comes along and says, buy that one, not, buy Jessica's monster book, not Russ's.
Obviously.
Yep. Jessica is an adept. Buy her book, don't buy Russ's. And
Sorry.
Yeah, when they're influencing the market, and I mean, I get it, like bookshops put certain books in the window. I get it. I do get it.
But there's many bookshops.
But they're not also writing those books.
Yeah.
But the bookshops don't own the books.
That's right. It's not their books. Yeah.
The bookshops are just a retailer. They don't own the books. They aren't the IP holder. They aren't all these other things as well.
Yes.
And I think that's where it gets confusing.
Yes.
Like if it's just Drive Through RPG, fine. They can promote what they want because they're just a retailer.
Yeah.
But this is all of these things.
Yeah, because like we're not bothered by Drive Through because Drive Through also doesn't own 99% of the market of RPG books.
Exactly.
Right?
So what you have is then a company that literally controls the hobby.
Yeah.
And is able to gatekeep.
Yes.
Entry into it.
And has proven that they're not very good gatekeepers. As in, go look at the people who are the original adepts. Some of those people are out of the industry now for good reasons.
I never really followed who it was, to be honest.
It was not I'll say it. It was a corrupt system. The system to become an adept. And I have very, very good friends who are adepts and did very, very well being adepts. And I love them. And their part of it was not corrupt. But it was basically, you can work really hard to the point where you get noticed by wizards or be friends with somebody in the company. And that's what ended up happening. Right. And it was, they have shown that they can't be good gatekeepers like that. They've shown they can't even control their own products when it comes to like not putting out things that are objectionable. So like, why? Yeah. So, But all the stuff you said is absolutely true.
But the thing is, even if they had been good, good stewards, it's the idea that someone has that power. Because it's like, right now the people running the company are nice people and that's not a problem. But if you have that power, you can't control who's going to inherit that,
Right.
It's
And I've heard, not to say I'm old, because I am, as we said earlier, only 36 or 25.
Yeah. You and me both.
And so obviously I've only been doing this job for a very short while. But in that short while,
in the second edition days,
less than that. So in the last 20 years or so, I've seen various management teams go through Wizard of the Coast, and I've been friends with some of them sometimes I haven't, sometimes I have, do you know what I mean? And it's, in the early, 2000s, first name terms, very, it was a very cordial, I can't think of the word, but, it was a friendly thing. Mm-hmm. And as different management teams come and go, you don't know what the management team's going to look like in 10 years.
Yeah, right. Or 5.
Back then, it was Ryan Dancy who was all over open gaming, and we want this, and we want open gaming, we want open gaming. And now you've got a management team that doesn't want open gaming. With diametric opposed opinions to him, who actually say, while he sits there saying, I made the OGL and I'm telling you it can't be rescinded. Right. They're sitting there. The current management team is saying,
we don't care.
We can find a way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We will go against our own contract to get what we want.
And I'm not saying the current guys are evil or anything. I mean, I don't think the current guys agree. So I bet you that the arguments that we have externally about all of this, they are having internally, and that there are definitely people. I think we kind of saw that because going from we're going to try to take control of this thing, we're going to violate our own license and go against our own contract and our own word to try to violate the OGL so that we can get back our thing. To we're going to put it all out under a Creative Commons license, and that was 6 weeks, and that wasn't the same person who went from one to the other. No, that was one group got control over the situation when they didn't have it originally.
Absolutely,
right? Yeah. So there's going to absolutely be internal struggles going on.
Mm-hmm. Well, I kind of think I've mentioned this to you before.
I don't know what they are, but
I kind of think they succeeded anyway. But from a PR point of view, it looks like the community succeeded. Right, but they didn't, and because they have killed the OGL, which is what they wanted to do. Well, all right, not legally, it hasn't been rescinded. It's a dead duck now, though, isn't it? It's as good as dead.
Although we still have to live with it because everything that was written under the OGL, we have to use the OGL. Yeah. But they I don't think their intent was to get rid of the OGL. It was to pull back the 5.1 SRD. Like they didn't want their whole rule set out there. So they didn't accomplish it. I think they accomplished their goals because they have a dominant platform now. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that's what
they learned what we all knew, which was, who cares what you put out in an SRD? You have the D&D brand.
Yeah.
So,
no one else has the D&D brand.
So I'm just saying the rule set does not matter. When it comes to this topic, it does not matter. They can put out all the rules for free. It does not matter. What matters is that platform they're building.
Yes.
And it's about control of the game. And the control of the game, instead of being exerted via rescinding a license, they're going to do it by building a platform so attractive and so necessary.
Right.
So they're going to control it that way instead. So whereas rescinding the license was a stick, the platform is a carrot, but they're going to do exactly the same thing.
Yeah. And it's a carrot for both customers because it's good and because it has a lot of really good options for it. We were talking earlier about all the trickeries of how to share player stuff. Beyond, you don't worry about that, right? You add them to your campaign, they have access to everything you have. And it's like, wow, that's really nice. And it's hard to do when you've got PDFs. And so it's really good for customers and it's really good for other publishers now. Like Ghostfire is over the moon that they get to publish, their products on there. It's really good for them.
So I have heard a rumor that the intention is long-term not to have it a lot more open as to who can publish on there.
Yeah, who could say?
But I don't know what that means. If it's invitation only, I think already that's a problem because you have to be friends with them
to
participate in the industry.
Who gets to choose, right? Yeah. And like you say, then now one company gets to decide who makes it. I mean, not really, because EnWorld's going to be fine. I keep saying EnWorld. EnWorld is going to be fine. I think regardless of whether or not. Beyond. Like it would take a much bigger share of D&D Beyond becoming the dominant platform to truly impact. Because like we said, Kickstarters are still doing really well, right? You can put out Kickstarters even for character option stuff.
Better than ever, yeah.
Yeah, you can still put out Kickstarters for character option stuff. And I think it's because we're selling dreams to people, right? That we sell products that that look really good. But then they go, oh, well, I don't know how to get that into D&D Beyond, right? Yeah. But then I think we can also focus on products. Like the other thing is, it's not just D&D Beyond. It's particularly character stuff in the character builder. Because like monsters, it's not a big deal looking up monsters on other platforms or even using PDFs. Encounter building, you can use Notepad, right?
Like, that's what it is.
All of the other components to it. There's a million other, like maps is really interesting, but there's a million other VTTs, that you can use.
Although having it all integrated into one place and packaged and being smooth and
but it's not that
is a nice thing,
right?
It's not the big barrier like the characters.
You can click on your character and it'll roll it in the thing.
But character builders are really, again, you guys know this, really hard to make, really hard to make well, and they take so much energy, and they're important because the customer base for the character builder, I'm making this number up, but it sounds right, is about 6 times bigger than the stuff you sell to DMs because it's for every player, right? Like that's the specific component that you're giving specifically to players, where most of the time we're focusing.
Yeah, I mean, traditionally in publishing, you're going to sell more copies of a player book than a DM book.
Yeah. So them having that, the focus of having a really strong character builder is really the big, I think the big draw and the big issue.
Yeah, and it's exactly what happened with 4E. But I kind of feel like, so some people will turn around and say, okay, so you're playing in Wizard Sandbox, it's their IP, just go and make your own. Go and make your own game that's not D&D. And fine, that is an answer. I don't think it's a satisfactory answer because I feel like we're talking about the hobby here, not the IP.
Yeah, right.
And while I agree that Wizards should be able to say who slaps the D&D logo on their book and use their branding, absolutely fine.
Right. They own it. Right.
The hobby they don't own.
Yeah.
Right.
And
I don't know. I mean, so we know about people that have been in the industry well and the value of their future predictions on things, and that they are not a good indicator of what's really going to happen. But I don't feel like I'm too worried about other RPGs. Like Shadow Dark is killing it, right? It's one person. They built their game, $1 million Kickstarter, big community, lots of people playing it. I joked because they have their own character builder called Shadow Darklings, where you can make characters really really quickly. And I was like, is Shadow Darklings ruining, Shadow Dark with their dependence upon digital tools? And it's like, it's one dude that runs Shadow Darklings, right? But so we just obviously we're seeing the success of MCDM's RPG. It feels like other RPGs. I don't know that Beyond growing is going to hurt other RPGs.
Yeah, Chaosium's doing fine. Typical 7's doing fine with Doctor Who and Warhammer.
Really small indie RPGs are still going to hit the people.
Amazing.
But to me, the particular one is publishers of 5e material.
Yeah.
that's where I see that people could be creating products and even selling products and doing well at them where they're just not going to get used because of the extra effort that it takes to try to use them compared to what is already so easy to do in D&D Beyond.
And it occurs to me that even if, and this is like a big, big if, Wizards turned around and said, it's going to be set up like Drive-Thru RPG, anyone can come along and just upload their product and sell it.
Right.
To make it work in the character builder,
I don't know how
means you need to
done.
actually do coding and code the character builder. So you won't be able to do that.
No.
Unless there's something about the character builder I literally don't understand. You won't be able to do that.
No, I
like,
think,
someone at D&D Beyond would have to code that.
I mean, I think it would be similar to having to get your material to work inside the character builders inside Roll20 or Foundry or Fantasy Grounds or any of the other kind of integrated VTTs. It would be the same level of effort, the same structuring.
But you get actual coders doing that, don't you?
It's it's an engineering job. Yeah,
it's not writers that do that.
I have a question for you and with A5E. So there is a A5E. They call it the official A5E module for Foundry, but they're not actually associated with you, right? That's a fan. It's a community group that did this.
Well, we started it. So the going back like a year and a half, I can't remember exactly. So we invested some money to launch it and start it, and then it was handed over to the community.
Gotcha. Yeah. So they've gone through a tremendous amount of effort to structure the data that's inside A5E to make it compatible with Foundry, and it's available on GitHub. What's that?
It's enormous amount.
Oh yeah,
it's
no, it's
huge.
huge. Yeah, I mean, I'm doing it over on Open5e, right? I'm converting other 5e material into a structured format over on Open5e, so that other tools can use it, and we have a structured version of this stuff that was released under various open licenses.
I mean,
and it's a ton of work, and it's hard to get it right.
It's not a skill set we have in house. We're writers and artists, and I don't know how to code programs and computers and make that sort of thing.
Right.
And it's expensive to hire people to do it because programmers are very expensive.
Yeah.
They're not.
And the return isn't necessarily there.
This is the thing,
Yeah, so myself and James Intercastle and Scott Gray have a book called Fantastic Layers that we put out a couple of years ago. And we said, hey, we've had people come to us and say, oh, we'd love to have this on Roll20. And I was like, hey, look, the maps are totally available and you can drop them in Roll20. You can do whatever you want with them. And they're like, well, we really want the module with with the dynamic lighting and tokens in the right place and all that stuff. So we actually commissioned another friend of ours to do it, paid him to do it, put it up there, and we make a solid $12 a month.
Yeah.
Right? It was totally, it was not even worth the conversations we had about it, much less the amount of money we paid.
And then when you multiply that by the 30 or 40 platforms that are out there, and fans of each of those platforms is busy telling you that it's a no-brainer for you to put your thing on that platform.
It's definitely
it's not. It's a really big, expensive thing for us to do.
Sure.
Dividing that by 30, times that by 30 platforms, it's more. It's a much bigger endeavor than actually making the books in the first place.
Right. Yeah. So I don't know. Yeah. I mean, who knows what D&D is going to do, what Wizards is going to do as far as opening up D&D Beyond to more publishers or not. And I'm not even sure, is it good or bad one way or the other? Like, on one side, the thing is, I have kind of boxed them into a situation where they can't win as far as getting Mike Shea seal of approval. Because on one side, it's like, well, if you don't put any other third-party publishers on there, it's a lockdown platform that doesn't expose people to the other material. If you add third-party publishers, you're becoming too big and brittle and you're going to ruin the industry. Not really, right? But I've kind of created this no-win situation in my mind of, what they can or can't do. So then it's like, well, what can they do? I don't know, they're gonna, but what could they do that would make me feel better about it? And one is put your stuff out in PDFs like everyone else, right? Everyone does it. Every other publisher, almost there's 2 or 3 others that do.
And in fact, they do for a lot of their stuff.
And they do for everything except the 5e stuff, right? Right. And maybe they'll say, hey, for the 2014, even if they did it staggered, hey, the old stuff, after it's been out for a couple of years, then we'll put out a PDF so you feel good about owning your own copy. Because it's not hard, compared to what you were talking about, compared to coding the stuff to get it to integrate with a digital character builder is, I don't know, 2 or 3 orders of magnitude more in cost than dumping a PDF of the thing that you sent to the printer.
Yeah.
Right? It's not really that hard to, I mean, you got to do more work than that.
Yeah.
But it's not that hard to optimize a PDF out of the print copy that you made and make it available to people to download. And as we talked about before, it's already, especially Wizard stuff is pirated like crazy already.
Yeah, I can't believe that piracy is the reason not to do that.
I think it's control.
Well, it's already being pirated.
Yeah.
I bet it wouldn't take more than, I'm not going to tell people how to do it, but it wouldn't be hard to find it if you really wanted to do that. So,
yeah,
and our stuff as well, but
yeah, my stuff, right? I was very upset. Like, if you Googled my product titles and added the word PDF, you found illegal versions before mine.
I think, for basically anything, I think.
I haven't done that for us for a while, actually. Let me just check now.
Oh, don't do it. It hurts.
You'll just feel sad.
You're just going to make pain. You're just going to make pain for yourself. You already have COVID. Take it easy. Yeah, so like that's one would be PDFs. Another one, you talked about like how hard it is to get stuff in, and this is one I've been thinking about and trying to get people's thoughts of it, and I'm not getting a lot of traction. But like, I would really love it if they had like authenticated APIs to both put in data and pull data out of D&D Beyond.
Yeah. I mean, that's another technical hurdle.
It is,
guess.
and I don't know why they would put that high on their list of things to do when they've got a million other things that are directly profitable to them. But it would make me feel better. Again, I'm not here to give them MBA advice. I'm here as a customer and as an RPG fan to say these are the things that make me more comfortable about this. Yeah. And then I thought maybe we don't even so this isn't super well known, but it's true. You can get API access to your character sheet, and tools like Shard can import characters from D&D Beyond into Shard with one click. By feeding it the URL,
that I knew. Okay.
And it pulls XML data because the data's in XML. And I think it was like 2 companies back when they created this thing. It's an unofficial API. It's used by there's a fellow that does it for Foundry to pull data over from D&D Beyond.
So
that
Foundry could get shut down at any time.
Well, it's been going for years. The guy's making $30,000 a month running this service, and it's been going for years.
Maybe Wizards just haven't noticed.
Well, yeah, right. I hope they're not listening to the show. But like. But it's not taking away their market share because you have to own the material on D&D Beyond to do the export. So it's not a situation of like, all of the stuff that was up there for pay, you're getting for free. No, you still have to own it on Beyond to be able to import it into other tools. But it gives you the option of using other tools instead of just hoping that you can use whatever Wizards decides to release in D&D Beyond. The other one was an import way. Wouldn't it be cool? And I know like it's hard to get structured data from like A5e, except somebody's done it because they did it for Foundry. So there is a structured version of A5e material out there. We actually used it to convert A5e material from Foundry over to Open5e. So there's 2 versions of structured data that exist for A5e out there.
Yeah.
And wouldn't it be neat if there was a way to import like monsters or subclasses or spells or items from that into D&D Beyond into your collections page. So you're not releasing it to everybody. It's just going to your homebrew section. But instead of you having to type out 7 fields worth of information, you have a little button and say import, and it goes bang.
Yeah.
Well, when is Wizards going to get around to doing that? And the answer could probably never. But you know what else somebody could do is build a Google Chrome plugin that could do exactly that without Wizards even having to do it.
Do you know why I think that
just like Beyond 20
happen,
does?
Though? Because when they start integrating that 3D virtual tabletop,
they need an API.
Every monster is then also going to come with 3D graphics and animations and all sorts of stuff that makes that even harder.
Well, so if you're importing stuff in order to get it to go into that, right. But I'm not even really worried about that so much. First of all, I'm not even sure I'm worried about anything other than character option stuff because I feel like, sure, they're going to have a VTT. There's other VTTs. There's even other 3D VTTs, right? There's lots of options there. So I don't feel like they're creating a real hard monopoly. First of all, I don't know. I would be surprised. Again, expert opinions are bullshit. But like, I don't think that many people are going to use the VTT like they use Beyond. You're not going to see 40%. I don't think so. I would be surprised if we saw 40% of people using the virtual tabletop, given that half of them play in person, right?
Well, it's
not going to dominate.
I think it's going to be like, I think Roll20 is going to suffer fancy ground. So people like that are going to,
although they have their lock-in too, right? We're talking all about the dangers of being locked into a particular platform. And there's lots of people who through expertise in the system, but also having bought a lot of stuff, aren't going to want to leave Roll20 because they already know it so well.
Yeah.
So, that's going to be hard. I don't think that's going to switch overnight. I think it's, it could happen over years.
Yeah.
But I don't know if it's enough. Yeah.
I think there's a danger here also because it's very easy to just sit here and sort of like just imagine that Wizards is a bunch of Machiavellian moustache.
Yeah. No.
Twirling villains. And we know that's not true. Nobody there is trying to be evil.
No.
I think
they're just doing what they think is best for the game. And we have a different sort of opinion on what that is. Yeah.
We have 3 layers of management there at the CEO and level that have all come from Amazon and Microsoft.
Yeah.
Right? They are not, these people didn't come from the TTRPG industry. They came from the outside in.
Yeah,
I'm sure everybody from in the design group, I'm really hoping that any of the designers aren't mad at me, because I really respect their work. And I know that they all, and many of the people we talk to and hear from, genuinely care about the overall industry.
Yeah.
But they did hire 3 executives to manage this thing, and they spent $150 million on D&D Beyond.
Yes.
They want a return on that, and they'll get that return however they can get it.
The frequency with which we're asked, why can't we have a thing like D&D Beyond?
Sure, give us $150 million.
$150 million.
Right, it's really right.
Yeah,
it costs a lot.
That's a hell of a Kickstarter.
Yeah. And then think about this: how much do you think it cost to make the core books? Do you think it cost $150 million? No.
Well, put it this way: we probably didn't spend as much as they did, because I don't know what they spent, but. I would say our core books are bigger, but possibly they spend a bit more. Maybe they I am sure they pay more than we do. So maybe that's a wash. I don't know. But yeah, you're not looking at millions.
Are you able to give the amount of money that it actually cost you to make the core books?
I actually would if I could remember it.
Okay.
Sorry.
But it's probably not $15 million.
It is not. No.
Right. So that means it's not even, and you're right. So the idea that they're not even spending a tenth of the amount of money they spent on D&D Beyond to do the next major iteration of the game, I think is a telling, I think that's a telling indicator of what kind of company they are now.
Yeah.
I think that's changed.
Well, I think there is, D&D Beyond's out there. There are rivals to, I say rivals in inverted quotes, there's Demiplane out there, which I think is the closest.
Yep.
I think that also suffers a little from the problem that is also, they choose who they, so it's still not open.
Yeah.
So it's not anyone can be on there. So it's still a case of you have to sort of be friends with somebody sort of thing. So I haven't actually used Demiplane for D&D, but I think they've got some 5e stuff on there, haven't they?
They do, yeah. And I reached out to them and said, hey, I'd love to talk more about Demiplane and get a better understanding of what they did, and they gave me a license to be able to see the 5e stuff that's there. Right now, it's a library, right? So right now, it's you can get the Tal'Darai Reborn book, Ghostfire. So we talk about how Ghostfire got their products up on D&D Beyond. They also have them up on Demiplane.
Yeah.
And different kinds of products. So the Monster Grimoire, which is the bigger book of monsters, they have a subset of it on Beyond, but they have the full version over on Demiplane.
Do you have a character builder on Demiplane?
No, so they have character builders for other systems.
Right.
They have one for, I went and played with their Pathfinder 2nd edition one just to see what their character builder looked like. They are planning on building a character builder for 5e. They already have 5e stuff there. They have the Tales of the Valiant playtest doc over there. Yeah. So, they're clearly thinking in that direction. And Adam Bradford is, I think running the show over there, right? He's the guy that built D&D Beyond back in the olden days. And it looks very, very similar, right? The tool itself is very similar. They still, from having poked at it, they still have a ways to go, though. All the tools do, right? The reality is D&D Beyond is by far the best of the tools that I've used for this kind of thing. I've been really trying to hey, now that Roll20 now has the Charactermancer outside of the VTT, so you can use just the character builder part of 5e, which includes not only Wizards of the Coast D&D material, because they have a license over there, but also other publishers like Kobold Press stuff. So you can mix and match now, stuff from Tasha's and stuff from Toma Heroes, and mix it together in one character. But it's pretty clunky, right? It's not nearly as clean as what D&D Beyond does. Shard is another good one that I like a lot. Shard has a good mobile support. It also lets you build characters outside of the VTT. Their VTT is so lightweight that you can ignore the VTT part and just do the character builder part. And that works. That works really well. And they brought in a lot of other material as well. It's a smaller platform. It's not nearly as
I would
big
like
in scope
to
as
see something like Demiplane operating a bit like Drive Through RPG and just being open for anyone to add their stuff. But obviously, when it comes to character builders, which, as we've said repeatedly here, are the big ticket thing.
Yeah, probably the one that's closest would be Roll20, because Roll20 you can't have a character builder that's outside. They do. I think you have to. I publish stuff there. It was a day for me to get a publisher account and start publishing stuff. But then you need somebody to go build it.
That's
right.
The thing,
You need somebody to go make all that stuff.
Just
and
uploading
that's
a PDF,
cost.
is it?
Yeah, it's not a matter. Right, exactly. It's not a matter of uploading a PDF. Yeah. But so it's a little bit of a pipe dream on my side, but the idea of having more structured versions of the material that companies are willing to license available for all publishers, I think would make the whole hobby stronger. So that
I think you probably find that the will is there, but maybe the technical expertise and the manpower
and like you said,
I
mean, so I decided that, in order to put my money where my mouth is, that I do some volunteer time over on Open 5e, where I sit there and I convert monsters over from one format to another to get it into Open 5e, and you look at like the people that are there, and these are engineers who at their full-time jobs are probably making $100,000, $200,000 a year, and they're volunteering to do that kind of activity over there because they believe in the work. So that's a costly endeavor from human power. But
my idea would be our tool site. Obviously, it's never going to rival D&D Beyond because it's not $150 million tool site. But I would like it if, we've got our character builder being developed. It's taking a long time because it's a big and very complicated thing to do. Right. And we've got one person working on it as opposed to a $150 million team. So we've got one person working on it, but it is coming along and we've got something to show soon. Also an API on that.
Yeah.
And on the actual rules content. As well.
Yeah.
So that it's all accessible.
Mm-hmm.
But that is such a technical challenge, like beyond even how I even know how you would go about doing that, let alone knowing how to do it. So
I wonder how much the future of RPG publishing you need to have somebody like that on your team. You need to just have
maybe. I mean, I don't know, because it's like I don't know if this is viable yet, right? Like I think we could I have this idea that it would be great.
Yeah.
I don't know that it would help anybody. Like I don't know if it would make a lot of money.
I don't think it would make a lot of money.
I don't know if it would return of its investment. Yeah. But it does feel like but you know what else didn't have a good return on investment was releasing all of A5e, 1,000 pages of A5e into the Creative Commons in PDF. Right? You guys didn't do that to, scrape more dollars.
No.
You did that because you believe in the industry and you believe in the product you made and you wanted more people to have access to it and to be able to do stuff with it beyond you.
And also additionally,
I think I've heard you say that on the show before, right?
But there was also a slightly selfish element to that as well, in that I believe that a well-supported game is a successful game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and a third-party market, a robust third-party market is important for that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That means there's so much more content coming out for it than we could possibly produce ourselves.
Yeah.
And that's an important thing. So, I won't want to try and claim it's completely altruistic.
Yeah, sure.
There is altruism in there,
right.
Definitely. And I do, I even if that wasn't the case, I think open gaming is a thing I've supported for 20 years.
Right.
And will continue to. But, there's also solid practical reasons to do that as well.
Yeah. Yeah. So if the world is moving towards a digital space, if we're having more and more dependence on tools overall, digital tools to support our RPGs, and we still want to have an open and viable, large, TTRPG, particularly again 5e TTRPG industry. I think us moving towards ensuring that the data we're putting out there, that the material we're putting out there has a way to be digested in a structured format. Can be, can help with that. I mean, it was really nice. So I wrote a book, Forge of Foes, with Scott Gray and Teos Abadia, and one of the things we said is we want to release a good chunk of this into the Creative Commons as well. We did so, and I put it out in HTML, and immediately a member of the Sly Flourish Discord server and anything like that is an engineer and took it and immediately turned it into like JSON and XML and other structured formats up on GitHub.
Yeah.
Didn't need my permission to do so, did it immediately. And then I took it back and started building tools off of the digital data that he created. So there's this really kind of great ecosystem that can exist when that's out there. And I think we're going to be more dependent on it. And the alternative is silos that we like you said, we have, that we have these big walled gardens. And if it's in Beyond, it exists. And if it's not in D&D Beyond, it doesn't. So,
I think at our stage, the best that we can do for our game is we can remove any legal impediment to people doing it.
Yeah.
But we haven't got the sort of expertise and the manpower to do it ourselves.
Yeah.
But the thing is, we're, and you're saying that as the hobby moves towards a digital space, we're book publishers. That's what we know how to do.
Right.
We know how to make a book.
Yeah.
What we don't know how to do is to make software application because we're not software developers. That's not our business. That's not the thing we've done.
Right.
And then when you get when as the hobby moves towards that and that becomes more and more important, I think kind of RPG companies are going to have to start to pivot to being software developers who also make books.
Yeah.
Eventually. It's not there yet, thank goodness, because we're not there yet. But I think eventually that's going to be the case.
The good news for like A5e is people have already done it for you in at least two instances. But when I look at A5e tools, that's structured data you have there. Like when I look up a monster,
some of it is.
It's not like you snapshot the PDF, right? No. There's clear delineation of what hit points are and what ability scores are, and somebody did that.
It's a web page. That is one text field though. Like there isn't an entry there saying hit points.
Gotcha. It's like an HTML. It's all the HTML in a.
One, so it's not as structured as it looks, and that's the challenge. That's the hard part.
Yeah. Well, the good news for A5e is it is structured over for Foundry.
Yeah,
and it's a fair bit of it. I guess we've done some character-based stuff, but spells, monsters, and items, which are kind of the big three, have all been converted on Open5e as well in structured format.
Yeah.
Now, the thing with Open5e is there aren't any tools that are directly digesting information from Open5e into whatever tool they've got. It's just, it would have to be converted again, right? But converting from one structured format to another is usually easier than taking it from a PDF into a structured format.
So what you want is something like Demiplane to pick that up.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And take that API
or even
and use that.
Even like a little converter. So there's like a little iOS app called Lion's Den, right? I don't know if you've ever heard of like Lion's Den, but it's an iOS application. It was around before D&D Beyond. It was the first digital tool that I used that I liked to manage a 5th edition character. And the problem with it was it was one of these tools where like the only reasonable way to use it was to use it illegally. That it had the SRD in there and it had an open format for including data, but you would just go find somebody who had done the conversion of all of the copywritten stuff
and put it
in XML,
yourself.
and then you could load it and yourself, and then you had like all the options in there. So that wasn't great. But being able to convert, it's still around and still operates, and being able to take data from one of these open sites or one of these open formats and convert it to that is another option. So I think aiming it so that it's not just focused on one application, because then you're just dependent on one other tool.
Yeah.
Making it so that it's more open so that other tools can. The example I think I brought up on the show with you last time I was here was one called Clash, right? There's Owlbear Rodeo is a lightweight virtual tabletop.
I tried it.
Yeah, and it has a plugin called Clash, and Clash actually has access to all the monsters from Kobold Press, A5e, the SRD, and these are all legal, right? These are all under the licenses, and you could just add it right into this thing with like a click. And it was buggy and small because it was one person that ran it, and so it
kept on messing up the initiative for me.
Right. The initiative got really weird. So anytime I moved tokens around, things would happen. But it was the fact that it could load it all in there, and you could like click on numbers and have it roll dice to roll damage and stuff like that. And that was one person. It was like a weekend experiment because they had access to thousands of records of 5th edition material.
Yeah. I don't know what's going. I don't know what the future's going to look like. I think going back to the sort of original topic, kind of. I think I would rather see a less centralized hobby.
Yeah.
Not. I'm not saying I want to see a less centralized game. Wizards owns D&D. Fine. I agree. They are the current custodians of that brand.
Right.
But the hobby itself, I think, has to be as open as possible. And I also think that the industry of the hobby, as opposed to the industry of D&D, has to be as open as possible. And there is a distinction between owning the brand D&D and playing, 5e, for example.
Right.
That, in my mind, is a different thing. And I realise it's not for everyone. To a lot of people, it's the same thing.
That's cool.
And possibly in Wizards' mind, it's the same thing, maybe. And maybe that's where the disconnect is.
Yep.
I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah, I don't know either. And I guess what I don't want to see happen is for them to have an outsized draw in the hobby that's bigger than what they already have as the dominant player. Like they are the dominant player, and I'm not. And also, they put out a lot of outstanding products. They put out products that I absolutely love. So, like, and that's what I want, right? I want them to be putting out outstanding products. And when Kyle Brink was going and doing his circuit of different talks, he was saying, like, I want to compete fairly. He's like, I feel like the design team we have at Wizards of the Coast is the best in the world, and I want to compete fairly when we're making products. And I'm like, great.
But you can't compete fairly if you own the marketplace.
Yeah. Right, you can't.
That makes it impossible even to compete fairly because you have the advantage.
But if they didn't, let's just, in a hypothetical world, if they didn't have D&D Beyond, if it didn't exist, they would be.
Because like a book is a book is a book. Like even the fact that this one is, there's if you look at how much money, I mean, they're trying to be $1 billion brand, right? So if you take a book like Shattered Obelisk and you set it next to another book, I'll pick Dungeons of Drakkenheim just because it's in my head, and you put them side by side, you don't see one that's 100 times better.
No,
right?
Of course,
you see like, oh no, the production quality on it's really, really good. It's got the cool glossy cover where parts of it are opaque and part of it's glossy. I really like the art design. I really like, it's very, very good. Drakkenheim is also really good, right? It's also an outstanding book. And definitely I would stack Drakkenheim higher than other books that Wizards has done just from a design perspective because I enjoy the adventure more.
Well, and that's a truism all the world, whether you're talking about restaurants or you're talking about cars or whatever. The smaller company won't necessarily can make a better product than the bigger company.
That's right. Right.
Like,
you can make a better
Ferrari is a smaller company than Ford. Rolex is a smaller company than, I name another watch company, I can't think of one. But
Casio.
Yeah,
So when it's competing from a product by product basis, then you're like, yeah, absolutely. And I would want Wizards products to be great. It's when they can find a way to overweight their influence in the hobby, even though they're the dominant player. That's where I feel like the hobby becomes more fragile, and I want a resilient hobby, not a fragile hobby.
You see, you get people arguing, you get the sort of like ultra-capitalists kind of arguing against this, and they say, well, Wizards are just making a better product than you. You either compete or you don't, and that's it.
Right.
And, and they see no problems as sort of like monopolies and things like that. But the thing is, that is a topic which is so big. The concept of monopolies and market power and stuff like that is so big, goes back so many decades. Every industry that has kinds of legislation about it,
right?
Putting
suing
restrictions on Apple right now, and it's not a trivial topic. It has so much nuance to it,
right?
That you can't just sit down and just go, oh, it's like this, black and white, blah blah blah. It's not, because otherwise, why would it be a massive legal cultural debate over decades?
Yeah.
And over every industry on the planet.
Right. I also feel like we can do something here, right? That this is a small enough hobby that I feel like, by having people figure out, like when people wrote Beyond 20, hey, we wrote a plugin that sits on top of D&D Beyond and lets you use your D&D Beyond stuff in Roll20. We built integration between two platforms that don't talk to each other to have that work. That people are able to make things that are, that you can't have in other places, right? That, I did, right, in some of the conversations I've had in many different platforms where people have said like, well, Apple does this all the time. And you're like, why are we using them as the good example?
The good guys.
Right? Yes, they do. We kind of don't want it. Or Amazon. Oh, you say the same thing about Amazon. I'm like, yeah, well, Amazon's not my number one competitor for the product I'm making. But also, why are they a good example? Right? These are things we don't want, right? They killed all the bookstores.
And you've not noticed that these companies are embroiled in lawsuits continually.
They're getting sued over it.
At any given time.
Right.
They've got 10 major lawsuits going on in various jurisdictions around the world.
Why don't we try to find a way to not go there while we have the chance, right? Like I'm bringing it up before it's a problem because we can do something about it. Once it's a problem, we're out of luck. So, and I don't even know, like I did wake up after like a week of arguing about this with people, but discussing it. And I was like, is it really a problem? Right? Like, what if I just let my players use whatever they want to play? And I can bring to them and say, hey, we would like to use A5E, but A5E is directly compatible with 2014 D&D. So if you want to make a 2014 D&D character, you can go do that. If you want to play A5E, here's a copy of the book. You can make an A5E character. And just let them pick, right? And as long as a GM, I'm saying, hey, I'm going to open the game up to these other options. And I'm going to tell you how you can use them and why you might want to use them. But like the players can play the game however they want to play. Yeah. And if they choose to go with Beyond, then that's what they choose, and that's fine. And then, but I would also say the alternative, and this is like a D&D Beyond problem, is I also would say, by the way, you can't just use every single option that's on D&D Beyond now, even though the tool lets you use every single option that's available.
Yeah, you need solid filtering functions.
Yeah.
They don't have one.
Yeah,
their filtering function is broke. Like they have a fake one that looks like you can filter stuff, and it turns out you can't.
Oh, really?
It turns out,
Does it not?
And yes. No, so there's a way in, so there's so little, and God, every time I talk about this on YouTube, I get a bunch of comments saying you're wrong, and I'm like, go look, and they're like, oh no, you're right. So in the campaign section, you can limit sources and say, I don't want my players to be able to view these sources. That just means that when they go to the compendium, it's not listed in their compendium. But if they go into the character builder
And either they own it or you own it. Those options are available in the character builder, and they don't know where it came from.
Oh, that's true. Because I just did that. I built a character for a campaign, and they'd put limiters on it, and I assumed using the character builder that it would do that for me.
Right. It does not.
And it does.
Yeah.
Maybe
and like if you in the subclasses, they don't even list the source that it came from.
Yeah.
I think spells and other ones do, but like the subclasses, it's like
it doesn't.
They're all over the place. So I
just
had one where I said
what was available was pre-filtered. Thank you. That's I've learned something today.
Yeah, and I think that this is why there's so much discussion about spells like silvery barbs, right? So like there's Wizards puts out a spell. The spell, one could argue it is or isn't overpowered. Or whatever, but it certainly caused a lot of conversations all over the internet for a long time. And you're like, this is one spell that was done in one Magic the Gathering source book, right? That was published 2 years ago. Why do we even care? And their answer is because it shows up in D&D Beyond all the time, and it's better than every other spell you could pick of that level. So the fact that it came from a Strixhaven doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Players expect, well, it's in D&D Beyond, I assume I can use that spell.
Yeah,
and that's why you see like Toll the Dead.
Every
Every cleric uses Toll the Dead because Toll the Dead's a D10, and that's way better than the D8s that you normally get.
I'm so surprised. I really thought, I naively thought that the system did filter that out, because I know I've had...
It's not naive. Everyone believes it.
Yeah.
Trust me, and you will get email, maybe. You'll get email. Oh, Mike Shea's wrong. You can totally filter it out.
We'll forward it to you. We'll forward it to you. Don't worry.
Yeah, no, that's okay.
That's
I hear it all the time. Anyway. And one day I'll be wrong, and I hope to be, because that means you can filter stuff in D&D.
I love it if that's happened, because I thought you could, because I know there's so many DMs that like to include things or not include things. Like my DM doesn't like the lucky feat, because they're just like, that's...
Oh, I'm with them on that.
And that's fair enough, but when we're doing session 0, they're like, hey, when you make your characters, don't do that.
Right.
And I thought D&D Beyond would have had the option to just give GMs that control, but shows what I know.
Well, certainly if you're adding third-party content as well, you definitely need to be able to filter that stuff.
Yeah,
they're going to have to. Yeah, right. I don't think they've added spells, like the new, I think for both the Tal'Darai setting and for the Ghostfire stuff that just went up, included new spells that are now part of the spell compendium inside.
And you can't filter them out.
And that would mean they would just show up if you had them. Now, they only show up if either the GM owns it or the player owns it. They won't show up otherwise.
What about the 2 new books that just went up then? They're not in the compendium,
yes.
are they?
Yeah. So the Ghostfire, I can't remember the name of it. It was a Ghostfire book that had a whole bunch of adventures in it.
Yeah.
And that is in there, and it had spells, and those spells and monsters are part of the compendium part.
Oh, right, okay. So that's what I say. That it's not just a question of, like, drive through RPG and uploading a PDF. It is a technical integration thing.
Yes, and they did it. Yeah. My understanding is that like it was sort of a mixture of both companies working together from the direct InDesign files that were used by Ghostfire to publish the book. So it was not hands off for either group. Both groups had to do work in order to get it up there.
Yeah.
It wasn't nearly like going to drive through RPG and saying, I want to sell a PDF, and no human being on the other side is even aware that you're doing so.
It does get me interesting that the whole barriers of entry thing, the sort of like in about 2000, there was also, the barriers of entry are coming down. There's an open gaming license so we can write stuff. And like desktop publishing has got to the point where we can quite easily make a book look really nice from home.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And we can put it on Drive Through RPG and actually sell it because there's a storefront there that sells RPGs. And all these things kind of came together, and then Kickstarter came along, and
crowdfunding is huge. Patreon.
And all this stuff, the barriers of entry, were coming down and down and down, and more people were getting access to the industry side of the hobby. And now I feel like the barriers of entry are going to start going up and up and up again, because doing that is not going to be enough anymore. You're going to have to do the technical stuff and have entry to specific platforms to be viable.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, the idea that Shadowdark, an independent RPG, had to have a digital, and they're like, it's super easy to make a Shadowdark character, and they still built a digital tool. Yeah. And or a person built one as a fan, and then Kelsey purchased it and made them an official tool for Shadowdark. So they have the idea that the super lightweight, old school style RPG also has a digital tool is pretty telling. But I think like I don't want to overemphasize this problem compared to like what we faced a year ago, because releasing the 5.1 SRD in the Creative Commons is such a bigger deal to open up the whole hobby than anything that they can do with D&D Beyond to try to limit it further. Like they're not comparable, right? Because
we can build all kinds of stuff. We could, you and I could just say, okay, we're just going to take all the money we've got and build a digital tool, and nobody could stop us from trying.
True.
Right. And so that they
well, all right, we need 150 million.
Yeah, we need 150
million. How much of that have you got?
Only capitalism is
not
stopping us. Is what I'm hearing.
Right, not a lot. Yeah, but we could just start a crowdfunding campaign and we'll
and make 150 million.
Yeah, we'll get 150 million. Yeah, probably on the first day, I imagine.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, 75 on the first day.
Do you know what? I think if a viable person came along and did a crowdfunding campaign, literally saying we are going to make an open version competitor to D&D Beyond that's going to be as big, has all these publishers signed up already, I reckon it would do a killing. I really would.
Maybe.
I'd be tempted to sign up as a publisher, so if you're thinking of doing that, so just
I suppose that's what that's what demi-plane is, I suppose, really, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
There's another side for me, which is like, as GMs, my focus is always like, I'm a publisher, not quite like you guys. I don't.
I think our focus is slightly different. Yeah,
I had to deal with that earlier today, but I try to really keep my mind focused on like what affects GMs, and there are things that GMs can do in this situation to try to make their version of the hobby stronger. Like, when I wrote is, Ghostfire is super happy that you can buy their product over on D&D Beyond. Why don't you go buy it on their website instead? Because they're almost certainly making more money, and you get a PDF that you can download and keep. Yeah. Right, so maybe go buy it directly from the customer that's actually making the material.
What the royalty cut is on that?
I guarantee it's not as good as their own.
I bet it's about 50%. I bet you.
I would bet 70-30. I bet it's the typical Apple.
Yeah, I don't think it's 50. I don't think it's got distributor.
The Apple / Amazon 70-30. I can tell you that they were happy with it.
DM's Guild is 50.
Yeah, but nobody's likes that. Like, so Dungeon Dudes.
Well,
the Dungeon Dudes said
nobody likes paying royalties. That's not.
Well, so Dungeon Dudes said we were fairly treated.
Right.
So I don't think they would have said that if it was 50%. Right. I think maybe, but they would be pretty naive if they, and I don't think they are. To think that a 50%.
I have no idea what it was. I'm just guessing.
Also, recognize that like of the 50% that's charged for DM's Guild, 30% of that is going to one bookshelf, and 20% is going to Wizards.
That's true.
So Wizards could just charge 20%.
Yeah,
it would look great, and it would be making the same money they made elsewhere, roughly. Get credit card transaction fees and stuff like that.
I think.
The things that GMs can do, like buy PDFs so that you actually own the thing that you bought, right? And go and try to buy it from the companies that actually made the thing, instead of going through a third party, so that you are giving them the bigger cut that they would make. Bring other 5e material from other publishers to your game, even if your players don't want to grab onto it. Say, hey, this is another option that you can use, and bring those other options to people and let them actually see it.
Normalize it, yeah.
Yeah, normalize it, right. Break the idea that Wizard stuff is the good official stuff and everything else is homebrew crap.
It's a dupe, yeah.
Right? Like, yeah, we get a lot. I definitely feel like people think that, I hear it from people, that, the Wizard stuff has been through this like tremendous like amount of testing and really good design. Like, nah, I got lots of examples of things that are a mess. And boy, and not to, butter up my hosts here.
No, please.
But like, there isn't anything I have found in A5E that hasn't been better than what I have found in the 2014 books.
Oh.
I have been using the A5E Monstrous Menagerie now pretty solidly for more than a year. And my players wouldn't even know that I switched, but I know, and I love the A5E
except the monster encounters are more fun.
Yes, right.
That's how they would know.
Right.
We're having 10% more fun than we were 2 years ago.
Overall enjoyment. I did. Right. So using the survey technologies I've done, overall enjoyment has gone up 7% since I've used the trial. Look, I got them right here. Right. Trials and Treasure. Woo. Great book. Right. I love the random encounter tables. I've actually spent a lot of time messing around with the treasure tables in here. I have a feeling there are things that the Monsters Menagerie in particular, because it's my favorite monster book. And I think there are things in there that I don't know that Wizards is going to grab onto, like the idea of having treasure tied to monsters, having the knowledge checks that are wired right in, having a list of potential encounters that are there, on top of really well-designed monsters whose math works out much better.
I don't think any of those ideas are new. I think people have done all of those things together. It's just that we grabbed them all and put them in the same,
Right. I haven't seen it all in one book that covers the core monsters.
Yeah.
So... what was my point? Was buttering up about how great A5E is.
That's fine.
So I just, so I want people, the idea that Wizard stuff is better is false, right? And then sometimes it is, right? Depending on what you're looking at and what you're comparing. Sometimes it's not. If you were to pretend that all of the publishers are sort of even Steven, they're a really good publisher, right? Like the quality of their material is great. Their art direction is, honestly, I think it's the best in the industry.
Yeah, production values are fantastic.
Production values are tremendously good. Design, though, can be hit or miss. Yeah. And I don't think it's because the designers aren't really, really good and working really hard. I think that the process that they've established internally is such that sometimes good design doesn't necessarily hit the book by the time it needs to hit production.
But I also think there's a ceiling where, nothing is ever going to be perfect. And quite a lot of things are going to be very good.
Yes.
And all those things that are very good are going to be roughly on a par. Right. None of them are ever going to be perfect. Yeah. So there's quite a lot of stuff out there that is very good.
Yes.
At that point,
Yeah, and I certainly, like, as I've been part of my, many jobs is doing spotlights on RPG products, and I do spotlights on Wizards products. And, I don't think I've hit any that was like, this is a complete disaster, right? Like, this whole thing it would have been better if it wasn't made. I don't think I've hit that. I've hit adventures where I'm like, it's probably not worth running this adventure. Right. Yeah. And then sometimes it's like that sort of toxic fan problem of like, well, that wasn't the Planescape I wanted. Right. And they're going to have to face that more than anybody else is going to face it because they're the one that actually owns the IP to make a Planescape book. But like,
I don't know. We get told off when we give stuff away for free.
Yeah. Yeah. Your tokens, your free 2,000 tokens aren't good enough.
So we put an archetype up on the Level Up website for free.
Yeah.
Just because that's like, writing a blog for them. It's like, I'll put an archetype up.
Right.
And someone was very, very upset that it was there and it wasn't in Gate Pass Gazette because that means I have to look in 3 places now.
Okay. We put it on the tool site. It's on there as well. So,
and it's on the tool site as well.
It's like, and you don't have to. Like, there's a lot of subclasses in the world these days. Actually, I think that's one of the real strengths of 5e is subclasses is a fantastic way to keep the game fresh.
Yeah.
And, that idea that there are thousands of subclasses. So that idea of like, if it's not in Xanathar's or Tasha's, it doesn't exist. That to me is a problem because there are so many subclasses that can really, I'm playing a Kobold Press Midgard based game now. And we're using all subclasses from Midgard books and everything else, and it tailors the game.
The beauty of that sort of stuff is that sort of stuff it's not like writing a whole brand new rule system, which is really hard to balance and make. Making subclasses for D&D,
it's like one page.
I don't want to say it's easy, but the hard work has been done for you. The core mechanics have been set and established for you. So while you can make a totally rubbish, unbalanced, broken one,
right?
It's quite easy not to.
Yeah.
So when people come around and sort of say a third-party product's not going to be as balanced,
fifth edition product,
but fifth edition products, yeah, exactly. That's what I said. Yeah, I forgot what I was saying now.
If I can't get you to change from third party, I can't get anybody to change.
Yeah, true. No, fair. The core foundation of the game is robust enough that unless you're being really egregious, it is actually quite hard to put really, really, really broken stuff out there. If you're doing due diligence on your on the work you're doing. So most of the stuff that's out there for 5e that anyone's put a decent amount of effort in is going to be fairly fine because just the core system it's based on is.
Yeah.
So, obviously you can write something silly. You can say, this...
I think I could do it. I think I could.
10 million damage but
I think I could write something bad and unbalanced. I think I could. Myself.
It's interesting because, like, there are plenty of bad and imbalanced subclasses in both, that Wizards has published and other publishers have published. But GMs can kind of decide which ones we want to bring. Like, I don't allow Peace or Twilight Clerics, right? Like, they disrupt. I've had one and it disrupted my game. It made my game worse. So, it's kind of up to the idea that publishers can put lots of them out there with the recognition that GMs get to choose which ones hit the table and which ones don't. But I feel like tools like D&D Beyond make that harder to do. It's harder to bring in ones that aren't in there, and it's hard to keep ones out that are in there, and that's an issue.
So have we resolved anything then? Have we solved this meta crisis, as it were?
No.
No.
boy, did we talk about it a lot.
Yes, yeah. I mean, we don't know what's going to happen.
But I do think there are things we can do. We can't trust WotC to do it, but we can do things. And I think if we both as GMs and as publishers and everything else, I think there are ways that we can make our
I just feel
more resilient.
That collection of industry roles combined into one entity.
It's risky, yeah.
Makes it, no matter how nice the people are doing that, you don't know how nice the next people are going to be.
Or not nice, yeah.
You know, you don't know Hasbro's not going to sell wizards to Elon Musk.
Yeah.
You know, you don't,
right.
You don't know that.
I did have that, like, it's kind of a nightmare scenario, but like the idea that Wizards, so I totally agree with the changes that they made to the player's handbook. Teos Abadia documented it on Alpha Stream and showed how they're using better representative language in the 2014 books, which is a little weird because it's like, why are you modifying the 2014 books months
when they're
away
going to be redundant
from releasing another one? But imagine if it was the other way, and imagine if like a super conservative group ended up taking over through buying it, and they're like, "Yeah, we're taking all homosexual characters, or we can't, we don't want those in there, right?" Like that'd be terrible, and it's the same power, right? It's the same, it's the same situation that would allow one or the other, and.
Yeah,
I don't know. Like, I definitely I saw that was a big conversation that was on EN World's forums as well, and I definitely agree with the people that are like, look, it's their company, it's their tool, they can do what they want with it, and I'm like, yeah, of course.
Yeah, I think obviously I think you probably view it slightly more from a sort of community angle, and I view it slightly more from a publisher angle, just from the way we look at this particular issue, just because of the way it affects us. I mean, the idea that we'd be so dependent on the whim of a larger company who has fluctuated in the way it acts over the last 20 years drastically, it is intimidating, I guess is the word. Like they control the only viable marketplace, and because nobody else will use anything else, and they control the license, and they control this and that, and they control everything. It's
and I think there are some pretty easy head experiments to run that can show you what this control is like. One of them is, and we can, again, using A5e as an example, how would you compare the likelihood of getting level up advanced 5e up on Demiplane compared to getting level up advanced 5e up on D&D Beyond?
I would guess it's pretty much 0 on both.
I mean, do you think it's equally likely that you wouldn't be on one or the other?
I suppose Demiplane would probably be more receptive.
I have had a conversation with the people at Demiplane. I have not had a conversation with people at D&D Beyond, so yes.
I mean, can you just imagine them putting a competing version of 5e up on D&D Beyond?
Well, no, and I
can't imagine they would want to do that. If you think about it, though, the likelihood that, I mean, they already have numerous different systems up on Demiplane. We know that D&D Beyond is not going to put up they're not going to put up Cortex systems. They're not going to put Pathfinder on there, right? Of course, they're going to be focused on their game because it's their platform. It makes perfect sense that they would. But the idea that we have two similar platforms, one that is open to bringing on other versions of 5e and one that isn't, shows the kind of limitation on the
that's the ideal
tool.
situation, is it? And that's kind of like what I would hope for Demiplane, is that it does become a serious rival to D&D Beyond, to the point where when you're sitting down for a game with people, they go, "Oh, we're using D&D Beyond or Demiplane for this one."
Yeah.
Right.
And that's a serious conversation.
Yeah.
Like, it is an actual option that people will consider doing. And people will say, "Oh, well, we could use D&D Beyond because I do like their DTT that's built in." And someone else will go, "Oh, but I'd like to use Demiplane because it's got all the third-party stuff on it. So which one should we use?" And it's an actual valid conversation to be having. That's what I would hope for that. But still, we'll see. We'll see what happens. I think we have run we're like half an hour.
Yeah, and we still
used all the
sketch
oxygen in my room has been taken up.
Yeah. So I think we need to call it there. Luckily, we've solved everything. So
definitely.
There are now no more problems in the RPG industry. I'm glad to say.
Yay! Money's going to start flowing into all of us. Yeah.
If only.
Yay!
So. Yeah, thank you so much for coming on, Mike. I always love it.
Yeah, I'm sorry for burning 2.5 hours on your long podcast.
Poor Darryl's going to need to edit this.
No, it's always a pleasure, Mike. It's always a pleasure.
Yeah, and you. And I appreciate our email correspondence on these topics too. It's really always great. And like I said, huge fan of A5e.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Apparently, I now have to read this to you. This is the official podcast of Morris's unofficial tabletop RPG news, which you can find at enworld.org. You can find show notes at morris.podbean.com or wherever you found the podcast. If you feel like they deserve it, you can support the show on Patreon. In return, you will receive exclusive bonus content. Just go to patreon.com/Morrus. If you're interested in his babbling nonsense, you can follow at Morrus on the Twitter. Send your emails to morruspodcast@gmail.com. Not all of your emails, just the ones you want us to see. That's it. I'm bored now. You can go away. Shoo, off you go. Goodbye. Get out of here.
Spending more time over on EN World, I've really enjoyed the forum more than I have in a long time. So, yeah, and I hope Elon Musk doesn't buy EN World out for...
Well, we are talking to him about it.
Yeah. I will say, I do have morals, I do have ethics, but I do have a price.
Yeah, right.